All right, guys. Josh here with Wired Wattsmart. My guest today is Jeremy Sandino. He's a friend of mine. I've known Jeremy for a long time, since I was probably 16, 17 years old. Local entrepreneur, local business owner, all around good guy. Jeremy, introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Josh. I appreciate it. First time doing a podcast. You hear me good?
Yep, you're
All right,
good.
good. Yeah, so Jeremy Sandino, born and raised Yakima Valley, about to turn 49 years old. So Yakima native for sure. Love the valley. I've traveled around. I've experienced other cities and towns. I know Yakima sometimes gets a bad rap, but I really love Yakima.
Yeah,
The weather here.
it's where we call home, right? It's where we've put roots down. There's a lot of good stuff going on here. There's a lot of good people here.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm very blessed to live here, man, and just having a real deep personal network with people in the community has allowed me to grow my business. And it's man, the weather's pretty good. You get 4 seasons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff to do around here. And you're right, man. The area does kind of get a bad rap sometimes. And what I always kind of default to is it's like, there's bad stuff in every area, right? There's good areas, there's bad areas. Um, every area has different problems, whether it's homeless or theft or gangs. We definitely have, all of those things here, but
Right.
there's still a lot of good that we have to offer in this valley.
Right. Being born and raised, I get asked all the time, from vendors and other business partners don't live in this state, don't live in this town. It's always like, I've heard really bad things about Yakima. And I was like, well, what exactly have you heard? Like, well, stolen Hondas. It's like, okay, well, I don't think I've ever been to a city or a town that doesn't have crime per se, but I said, in my lifetime of being here, never really witnessed it per se. I
Yeah.
think it's all depends on who you hang out with, where you live in any town. But what I do love about Yakima is it's a farming community. And I always compare Yakima to probably like the biggest little city that I'm familiar with, obviously, because it seems it has a lot to offer for the size that it is. What are we, about 150, 160,000 people?
Yeah.
It's not a super big city, but the beauty about Yakima, what I love is the four seasons, right? Like I've been, Texas and Florida, Tennessee, East Coast, West Coast, down south. Uh, every part of the country has like its little niche, Texas is awesome, but it's hot,
Yeah.
and then other parts of the country, it's like, they get a lot of rain or, it's humid. But then you come to the Northwest and you have, what's the beauty about Yakima is you are 45 minutes from the mountains and you're 45 minutes from the desert. So you can have a 70-degree lake to go boating in. And in the winter, you can go skiing, snowmobiling, all that stuff. You can go hang out in the mountains. So I really like that variety. And I think that's one thing that people really overlook when they don't live in an area that has that. They're like, oh, I've never seen snow, or, people come up here and they're, it's the weather's so mild here.
Yeah.
And I got to say, this probably one of the best things that the Northwest has to offer is overall, I think, weather. That's why I love the Yakima Valley. It's centrally located in the state. Obviously, things are changing drastically in our state. People are, looking to relocate to other states, especially business owners, right?
Absolutely.
Which is what we're primarily here to talk about. And starting when I was about 12 years old, I've had a solid job, I think, ever since. I've always been working. My dad was always, obviously a big advocate of me having a job or, keeping busy, doing things like that. And then coming from a, not a rich background, it was the normal bump and grind, for people like us to come up and work your way through the ranks and try and build a future for yourself and start a family and a business and all those things. And Yakima's done a pretty good job for me. I mean, I really like the people here. Just like you, a big network. I mean, I think between the both of us, we probably know everybody in town, which is great. It's
Right.
got that small town feel, but kind of that biggish, vibe. And it is funny because Yakima is a very cliquish town, in almost every industry that it offers. I mean, you can I mean, I know you could talk about the electrical industry. So can I. We're both in that industry.
Yes.
Um, but it is funny. One of the funniest things about Yakima, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the water here. I've never understood it, but a lot of people that I know that come from out of state or out of town and visit, they always ask me the same thing. Why is it that Yakima has a lot of everything that it has?
Yeah.
Like coffee stands, barber shops, restaurants, car lots, like it's so inundated with those. It seems like I get something and then it just has like a mass market of it. And
Yeah.
all of it seems to thrive. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I've ever been to another town that has more car lots per capita than Yakima.
Yeah. You drive down, First Street, you drive down Fruitvale now.
Yeah,
I mean,
right
it's
next door,
everywhere.
buddy. One just opened up. I was coming down here, and I was like, "When did that open?" And I was like, "It's got like 14 cars out there." It's like, "Oh, hey."
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
have friends that are in that industry, and they do very well. And it is funny because just like the electrical industry, I mean, how many electrical
Yeah.
contractors are in Yakima?
There's a lot. There's
How
a
many
lot.
distributors are in Yakima?
There's a lot.
We have more distributors in Yakima than I think Seattle.
That's crazy.
It's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
they all seem to do well. Everybody has their little pocket of
Yeah.
business, and
Everybody's kind of got their piece of the pie.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it does make a very interesting dynamic in Yakima. And like I said, I don't know what it is. It's just I visited Texas, because I was looking to relocate there possibly. I started buying and flipping some properties there. And, Texas is so big, Dallas, DFW area is just so huge, that you just, it's just, it's a completely different ball game. And
Yeah.
then you come back to Yakima and it's like just this melting pot, but it's kind of like I compare it to Disney World and Disneyland. They're the same parks, but one's way more spread out
Yeah.
and the other one's just really compact. So that's what I think Yakima is. It's just really compact, but it is always interesting to just drive around town and just see like all of these it's almost like there's a lot of entrepreneurs here.
Yeah.
It's like people want to start a business, then work at a business, which is great. It's a good breeding ground for that, but at the same time, like, what you and I are here to talk about is the pitfalls of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How people think that running a business is just like this glamour glitz all the way. But there are so many little pitfalls that people just don't understand of just all the ins and outs and the behind the scenes things of what business owners, especially in this town, go through. And that's what I really like is, the exposure to that because it does need to be talked about.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So,
It's and kind of before we came live here, we were talking and you said something that really resonates. A lot of people, they don't talk about it and they don't see the trench warfare you called it, right?
right.
They don't see the grind that goes into, getting something off the ground. And then once you get it off the ground, you got to try to figure out how to build off of that and catch some momentum and ride the momentum and then make the best, right? There's so many things that go into, being a successful entrepreneur, right? But it starts way back when you're young, right? Like you kind of either have that fire in you to want to try your own thing, or you definitely have that fire in you to do better than maybe your folks, right? Um, I know for me that fire was ignited at a very young age. Uh, what did that look like for you, man? Like at what point in your life were you like, you know what? I think I want to hustle some more. I want to do my own thing. I want to get out there. I want to figure it out. Like, was there a time in your life where it just kind of was like, hey man, I'm destined to do some better things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you, like, I remember my childhood growing up. I had a great childhood, man. It was awesome. Like my parents were, they were not wealthy at all. But when you're growing up as a kid, you just know your surroundings, So I
Yeah.
never looked at it as we were poor, we were this or we were that. It's just I had a lot of fun as a child, and my dad and my mom, We did things, camping, boating was a big part of our lives. My dad was a marine mechanic. He owned his own marina, not back then, but he so I'll start from the beginning. My dad is an immigrant from Chile. Him and his family came over way back when he was a young child due to the war over there. They were dictatorship, and things were getting really bad. So my dad's dad passed away when my dad was really young, and my dad's dad was a wealthy guy. He owned businesses over in Chile, and he was they were pretty well off.
Yeah.
Um, Dad had they had a decent sized family. Obviously, things were really changing in Chile with the dictatorship, and his oldest brother was in the military over there. And I actually I learned about all this just recently because my dad passed away last year, and so talking to some of the extended family, kind of got a little more background on what happened. And my dad's oldest brother was in the military, and he was against the basically the dictatorship that was trying to take over, and he was afraid for the family of them being executed because that's what they did.
Yeah.
And my dad never understood this until later in life, but so they got uprooted to America here, and actually they landed in White Swan. And so all my dad's siblings were older than him, and they all had college degrees, and they obviously, and my dad was kind of the last one in the line besides him and his sister. And um my dad's in this foreign land, and then his brothers moved back, and so he was kind of here by himself with his sisters and his mom, and then his mom passed away a few years later. So it really, really, it affected him a big time, and then he went to college for like 2 years, YVC, met my mom, started his own family, started working at Yakima Door. And I remember that as a kid, Yakima Door was such an awesome place because I would go there, and the smell of the wood, and I just get to run around there. I mean, you could do that now. It's like an L&I claim waiting to happen. But, these big saws and all this stuff. And it was just so cool. I just thought it was like just an awesome place to work. And my dad really enjoyed it. And then my dad, I remember he came home and he told my mom that he's quitting his job and he's going to go work for Vic's Marina, which was over off Nob Hill at the time. And Vic was an older guy, and he kind of took my dad under his wing and kind of showed him the boat repair business. And over a couple of years, Vic kind of retired out. My dad, kept going, and then he worked for Del Rancho, which was the Bayliner guys over there in Union Gap.
Okay.
And he kind of kept going with the boat thing. And then they sold out. One of the owners had a heart attack, whatever. And I remember my dad talking to my mom about just opening his own business. And I thought that sounded great because I was like, oh man, this is going to be, I'm a young kid. I don't.
Right.
And so my dad, he basically started his own business, started doing his own thing. And I just thought that was really cool. I was like, shit, working for yourself. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And, going into high school and stuff, I'd had jobs, I worked at car lots, things like that, detailing cars. I always had some kind of job going. I remember I delivered papers when I was super young. I always had a job. And what I liked most about that is I always had money.
Yeah.
So like I remember, I was a big time skater growing up, and I remember being able to go to the skate shop and buying a new deck, trucks, and wheels. And my friends were like, oh, and I just thought it was cool because I had money.
Yeah.
So I always put that like, this is kind of cool, like you can buy things that you want. It was just a nice feeling. And then, growing up, getting older, into high school, I always had a job. I kind of had to make that choice, play sports or drive, because my parents were like, my dad gave me my first truck, but I was responsible for the insurance, the gas, the maintenance.
Yeah, that's funny, man. I was the exact same deal in high school, man.
Yeah.
Like I was a pretty good athlete, and it was the same decision. It's like, hey, if you want to drive and pay for insurance and gas, like you got to get a job. And man, like I was so into like my little truck.
Yep.
And like, I wanted to make money, and I was really into chasing girls. And so it was like, you got to have a car and you got to have a little money in your pocket.
Well, and that's what sparked it right there. It was like, I loved having my truck. It was a 76 Chev, square body, badass Cheyenne. I loved it. But I had to, work on that. My dad being, very mechanically inclined, obviously, I knew my way around tools very young. But that right there was probably like when I realized like there's 2 ways to go. You can work and kind of get things for yourself, or you can kind of wait to see what happens.
Yep.
So it was just always instilled very young that like I liked working because of the reward of what I could do, like, buy things for myself and just that independence. And that's probably about when that started, was about the high school area when I kind of realized you look at your friend network, and all of my friends, we were cowboys. We
Yeah.
we bucked hay and did cattle and all these things in high school, and it was really hard work. And I'll never ever forget back in high school, where we lived, there was a ranch right up the road that we used to help her maintain, and we had to buck hay. And I remember using my truck, my buddy was using his truck, and my other buddy was using his truck. This was an all day thing, man. I mean, we started at like 7 in the morning, and I think we got done at like 6 at night, moving all this hay, using our own trucks. I mean, we were just beat. And I remember she went to pay us at night, and it was like, it reminded me of the scene in Napoleon Dynamite. Like, it was like in change and like all this stuff. And I'm like looking at it, I was like, that doesn't even cover the gas that I burned in my truck, doing
Yeah.
all this stuff. So I remember going home that night and saying, you know what? This cowboy shit is not really going to pay off. This working harder thing is not. I think I'd rather work a little smarter. So I kind of flipped gears right there, and I kind of started looking for something else to be involved with. And obviously I got into steel construction, which paid really well. Obviously, when you're that young, making, mid 30s back then was really good money.
Yeah.
I was doing schools in Linwood and dairies in Moses Lake. And it was just a lot of fun. You were young, not married, no kids, traveling all over the place. It was good. I really liked that. And then we were working at the Linwood school, and it was me and my buddy Eric Candler that worked for this company. And I had drove over there because we carpooled, and we would go over there for 4, 5 days and then come home.
Yeah.
And I remember the foreman came on the job site, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna have a little lapse here between jobs because we're waiting for steel to come in, yada yada yada. So is there anybody here that wants to take some time off voluntarily?" And I started looking around, and everybody on that crew had kids and families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was me and Eric were like the single ones. And so I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm cool. Like, I got a lot of money stacked up, and it'd be kind of nice to enjoy the rest of summer or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I said, yeah, I do it. So, he sent me home, and he's like, well, it's going to be probably about 2 months. You can claim unemployment, whatever you need to do. I was like, yeah, all right, cool, great. So I go home, and of course, my dad, being my dad, was just up my ass like a week later, like, "Hey, you need to get a job. You need to get a job." And I was like, "I have a job." Like, I literally took this time off on purpose. And my dad just did not understand that. He was
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, yeah, you need to get your ass out there and blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "What?" I'm fine,
Yeah.
but I was still living at home, because, obviously, like, what's the point of getting a place if, you're only home like 2 days a week, maybe.
Right.
And so, dude, I'm gonna share a story with you, and it's hilarious, but at the same time, it pissed me off. So, to appease my dad sets me up for an interview, a job interview.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, okay, fine, I'll go entertain this. So I'll never forget. I drive to this building. It's out on North First. Has no signage on it, nothing. It's just a building. I walk in there, and there's like 8 or 9 people in this room. And some of them are dressed up, some of them are just wearing normal clothes, and I'm wearing just, I think I was wearing like, I was wearing a State Farm get out, some khakis and a shirt,
Yeah.
So like I was just in there. And I remember I walked in, and I sit down, and I'm just kind of like looking around the room, like, do we give our name to somebody? Like, there's really no direction here, but these people are just kind of like milling around, all BSing with each other. And this guy comes and sits next to me, and he's like so excited to be there. Like, oh my God, this is great, man. This is great. And I'm just like looking at him like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, what is this? Like, I don't even know what this is,
Yeah.
And I'm entertaining it. And then this guy comes out wearing this 3-piece suit with his hair slicked back. It reminded me of Jonah Hill on War Dogs. just all like just greasy business guy. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay. And he's giving us this spiel about this technology and this and that. And I'm like, still the whole time I'm like looking around the room for like a sign or what this place is. Anyways, he's like, yeah, I'm going to do some interviews, yada, yada. So I'll call you back, whatever. So I'm like sitting there. It's kind of like the DMV now. I was like, all right. A couple people go and they come out of the room and they're all like ecstatically excited and they leave. And I was like, all right. And then he calls me back there and I go back there. I'm telling you, Josh, I walk in there. It looked like I was in the Godfather's office. This guy's sitting in his chair and he's got these two guys beside him and he's at this big desk and he's like giving me this spiel about like my work ethic and this and that. And I this whole time I'm kind of like, like what? And he's like, look, man, I really like you. I really do. I like your attitude. And I'm like, I haven't said anything. Like this guy's trying to church me up and I'm just like, okay, well, all right, fine, whatever. So he starts giving me this spiel about this product, I can't remember the terms that he used, but it was like something 3,000 or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, that sounds great, man. I'm like, whatever. And he's like, so, you pretty much start Monday. And I was just like, okay, like, and he's like, yeah, so you're gonna meet back here, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but I really like you, man. I think you're gonna go far and this and that. And I'm just like,
So what was the job for?
dude, I'm getting to that. So if my dad was alive, man, I'd punch him in the face. But so I leave and I'm still just dumbfounded. Like, what just happened? Like, I have no idea who these guys are, but I got this job. And so I go home and, I didn't talk to my dad. I didn't see him. And then I remember going to my girlfriend's house that night and I'm sitting there on the couch and her dad's talking to me and we're chit chatting and I'm telling him about this.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's some blah, 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 like 4,000 or something like that. And he just starts laughing. He just busts up laughing. And I was like, what the hell is so funny? And he goes to the closet and pulls out a Kirby vacuum cleaner. He goes, this is the 3,000. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, a vacuum salesman? I was like, oh my God, I'm going to beat my dad's ass. So needless to say, man, I never went back. I never accepted the job. And I just remember going home and telling my dad, like, dude, you need to stop. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
He's like, well, it seemed like a really good opportunity. I was like, then why don't you do it? Like, I'm not going to go sell vacuum cleaners, man. So that was one of my my eye openers right there. Obviously, my dad wanted me to stay, whatever. So it's funny because shortly after that, my cousin showed up at my house and was talking about a company that his wife worked for that needed a delivery driver because their delivery driver got an MIC or MIP and couldn't legally drive the company vehicles anymore.
Uh-huh.
And so he's like, hey, would you be interested in, it'd be a short time thing, whatever. And I was like, if it gets this guy off my ass, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when I ended up at Platt Electric.
Okay.
I literally walked in on a Thursday. I interviewed with Clary, the manager, kind of just a quick sit down and shook hands. And I started that Monday.
Nice.
Driving the delivery truck.
So how old were you when you started at Platt?
Oh, God. I started in 99. So I've been there 28 years.
Wow.
So I think I was barely like 21, maybe.
Okay, so you started there early then.
Yeah. I started there really early.
So tell me about that time. So was this about the same time when you guys got Maniac Motorsports going?
Yes. So I started Platt Electric in this area of the 99 area, and my friend Jason and I, JJ, we worked together at Western RV. That's how we met.
Okay.
And we were both like car guys. I'd always liked cars. And JJ, he was kind of into cars too, but we just clicked really well. We just hung out. We partied all the time. And that's how we met, was at Western RV. Obviously, I left Western RV to go work the iron construction thing, and we remained friends. And I remember we were kind of getting into the import scene.
Yeah.
So back then I had a Prelude. I'll never forget. I bought a 1990 Prelude SI, red. And I loved it because it had the flip up headlights and the moonroof, and it was just a really cool car. And what sparked it was Eric Candler, my buddy's girlfriend at the time, had one, and I used to drive it all the time. Her name was Melissa or Missy. I used to steal her car all the time
Yeah.
and park my truck. And I was like, this car's so cool. So I remember I found one for sale back when I was painting houses, and I bought it from Don's Auto Sales down in Union Gap. SI, super clean car, loved it. So I had this Prelude at the time, and we were kind of getting into the import game because a couple of mutual friends of ours had moved over from I think it was Portland or Seattle, one of the two, and they kind of had an import scene, but we didn't.
Right.
And I remember one of them had a CRX, and he had like exhaust and things like that, and we're like, oh my god, this is so cool. Now this is all pre Fast and Furious.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
this is pre movie. Nobody really knows shit about this import game.
Yeah. So this is like when the import stuff, it hadn't even really got traction yet. Like it was still a real underground kind of scene.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was me and like 4 or 5 guys here in Yakima that had like, one guy had an Integra, one guy had a Civic, I had my Prelude, another guy had a Ford Probe. I mean, it wasn't even like, it wasn't even like a thing. We were just like this little crew that just kind of hung out. We really liked these cars, and what we would do is we would drive over to Seattle like on the weekends, and we would go to Racing Concepts up in Linwood. And of course, we would go and buy, the seatbelt pads and the shift knobs and the wheels and the headlights and all the little accessory bullshit, because honestly, it didn't make crap for our cars. It was primarily Civics and Accords and things like that.
Yeah.
And so JJ and I, we really dug the scene. It was just a cool little car scene. And one day, JJ picks me up, and we're cruising down Titan, and we're in front of the museum there, going down Titan towards 16th, and he's like, hey bro, I got a business license. I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, dude, we need to open a shop. And I was just like, okay, what do you think? And he's like, well, how much money you got? And I was like, I got like $1,000. And he's like, dude, let's do it. And I'm like, are you serious right now? And he's like, yeah bro. He goes, I already got a name. And I was like, what's the name? He goes, Maniac Motorsports. And I was like, that sounds pretty dope.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool. So here's me and JJ. We go to the store. We buy some Super Street magazines. We flip to the back where all the vendor stuff.
Yeah, because back then the internet wasn't blowing up like it is now. You had to find shit in magazines.
Dude, I had a Razor phone. It was a flip phone.
Yeah.
I mean, smartphones didn't exist. Like this was all pre. So we get this magazine. We start calling these numbers in the back, and we start setting up accounts.
Yeah.
With like Street Glow and all of these big names.
Yeah.
But they weren't big then. And so we were a dealer for all of these cool products.
Right.
No buy-ins, nothing like that. It was just like, okay. So JJ lived on 24th. He had this little duplex type apartment, and it had this small ass living room. And I remember we got one of these little Costco display racks, and we ordered, emblems and shit we were buying at Racing Concepts.
Right.
And we filled this little display thing up, and we thought we were just kings, right? We were like, oh my God. I would load up. So by then, sorry, let's skip that. I got rid of the Prelude, and I bought a CRX.
Yep.
I bought an 88 SI yellow, and started putting money into that. I, lowered it. I put a full Shogun body kit on it. I had it completely painted.
Yeah.
It was one of the first cars in Yakima that was completely body kitted out, fully painted. Interior was done. It was a cool ass car.
Yeah.
And so I was rolling that around, and everybody kind of recognized that car. This was bright ash yellow. And we would put all the parts in the back, and we would just go cruise Knob Hill and cruise around. And then we'd park at the car wash on 10th, and then people would just come and buy stuff from us.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of started. We just kind of networked like, oh, you want this? And then I'll never forget one of our buddies, Curtis, he comes up to us and he's like, hey, I want to buy a carbon fiber hood. And I was like, I think, yeah, we'd get that. So we ordered our first carbon fiber hood, got it shipped to the house. And then that's when it really kind of things started taking off. Then we had people buying like body kits and wings, and pretty soon his apartment was getting like overrun by stuff. And I remember right down the hill, there was the old lawnmower shop on Knob Hill that had just closed up. And we were driving by one day, and all the, it was empty inside, and there was an older guy standing outside, kind of walking around the building. Yeah. And we pull in there, and we're like, hey, how's it going? He's like, hey, pretty good, guys. And I was like, hey, you, oh, yeah. And I was like, well, shoot, what are you going to do with this body? He's probably going to, I'm going to lease it out. And I was like, well, what are you looking, to get out of it? He's like, well, I would have to get at least what I was getting before. And I was like, well, what's that? And I'm expecting like a lot of money. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like 750. I was like, a month? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, can we move in now? Like, because I'm gonna be real with you, dude. We were two kids making decent money
Yeah.
right out the gate. Like this stuff was really taking off. And
So in the beginning, were there some pretty good margins in that stuff then?
yeah, it was pretty decent. I mean, we didn't have like a set, we would just like we would we would average it out, like what things were selling at like racing concepts that we would pay for, like what just there was a general consensus, like, I remember back then like a Honda emblem was like $30.
Yeah.
And I think at our time it costed us like 18 or
Yeah.
17, because we weren't buying in big volume yet, but we were really establishing really good relationships with the vendors. We were making friends with them.
Yeah.
And of course, so the first year we're in business, I think the first year, if I remember correctly, we did about $250,000 in sales.
That's awesome, man.
We weren't even open all year.
Like out of his apartment.
Out of the apartment.
Yeah.
And here was the problem with that, is then I found out about taxes.
Yep.
And this goes into our conversation of where we're gonna go, because nobody told me shit about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can we go?
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry. Nobody told me shit about that part of the business.
Yeah.
Me and JJ were brand new. We, just we were about to learn some very valuable lessons. And I'll get to that in a second. So we end up getting this shop on Nob Hill, and it was huge. I mean, it was an old lawnmower repair place that had two big roll-up doors, and then it had this little back warehouse piece, and then it had this little front shop with really big windows. And we're like, we had our little corner in the apartment. And I remember when we moved in, we put pegboard up.
Yeah.
We painted the floor purple just to and then we ended up scoring some glass display cases from my mom's boss at the time, and he really hooked it up for us. Big shout out to Del Matthews. I know he's not with us anymore, but Del was a super cool guy. I got to give him props. He really helped us with all of our displays in the beginning, because we didn't really have a lot of money, but he hooked it up. So we get this display thing set up, and then I remember sitting there one night, we're setting the shop up, and we're like spreading things out super thin because
you got all this real estate now.
Yeah. So we're like trying to make things like, wow, yeah, look at this. And we opened the store, and oh my God, man, it was mind you, we both had jobs.
Yeah.
I still worked at Platt. He was still at Western RV at the time. And, so we had to hire one of our friends to kind of get there. I think we opened at 10 or something. We were whatever. Our clientele didn't come in until the afternoon. Anyways,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we started. And then in the evenings, the place would just get super busy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, being right on Nob Hill, people were cruising Nob Hill.
Yep.
And then, of course, with the cops being the way they were back then, everybody would congregate at our business. And we would stay open, obviously, because we were selling parts, and then our lot was full with like 40 cars.
Right.
And so it was a really good setup, and things were going really, really well. And then the movie came out.
And so to be clear, the original Fast and the Furious came out. So that was in 2002, right?
Yeah, right in that time.
Yep. So because I was a senior that year, and I had my RX-7.
Yep.
And like, dude, I remember after watching that at the movie theater and leaving, just like everybody just revving their cars up, and it was fucking chaos, dude.
I will never forget the pandemonium that started after that, because up until now, it was a really just quiet network of people that had these cars. And after that movie, it was just like the floodgates opened. This market just exploded. We ended up doing window tinting and vinyl decaling, and just things got really, it was really, really, really going well.
Yeah.
And then I remember my girlfriend at the time, luckily she was around. I got a call from the IRS. And so just to give you a background, the Maniac emblem, I don't know if you remember it, but it was like a yin and yang type
Yes.
spiral,
Yep.
but it wasn't quite the yin and yang. It was we put a little different spin on it. And it was a counterbalance because JJ and I are complete opposites. JJ was not the business guy that dealt with the IRS and all the bullshit. He
Yeah.
was the guy that, bro, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy that and it's going to be great. And I'm like, bro, we don't have the money. He's like, dude, it'll all work out. Like this
Yeah.
guy, like he's the guy that always lands on his feet, just freaking me out the whole way. Cause I'm the guy behind the scenes, like, okay, how are we going to pay for this? Like,
Right.
where are we going to store this? Like, blah, blah. Anyways, I get this call from the IRS and he's like, hey, so-and-so is like, hey, and they're like, so, it looks like you owe us about $57,000. And I was just like, what? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, what? And then, yeah. So, I had to go get an accountant, and figure out like, okay, how do we pay taxes?
Yeah.
Nobody told us this part. Like, okay. So luckily my girlfriend at the time was putting money away because she knew.
Yeah.
She had kind of like, you guys need to put some money away because you're gonna have to pay something. So she had saved up like it was like 30 some $1,000s or something like that she had in the account for us, and I was like, okay. So I ended up getting an accountant. He ended up basically Terry Langley, older guy. He's gone here now, but he kind of gave me the 411. He's like,
Yeah.
so you have this business. So, what'd you do in sales? What'd you do for inventory? What'd you blah, 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 blah. And I'm like looking at him like, you're speaking Spanish, dude. Like, what are you talking about? He's
Yeah.
like, you need to know all this. And I was like, okay.
So
So
you guys weren't like, you guys didn't have like QuickBooks. So I guess that like,
no,
so you guys are just
Bro.
just two young dudes just fucking
just
winging it.
freeballing it, bro.
Yeah.
We went from selling parts out of our car to getting a retail shop to this business just exploding in front of our faces.
Yeah.
Neither one of us come from business backgrounds.
Like in a pretty compressed amount of time.
It was fast.
Yeah.
Fast, like really quick. And here I am, like, okay, I've got to be the responsible one. So I start learning about taxes and B&O taxes and all everything that goes along with it. And write-offs and what we have to keep track of and inventory. And so yeah, that's basically how I got my feet wet, and I cut my teeth on that business. And
Yeah.
it was just learning how the ins and outs of everything worked. And then of course you get into the other part of everything. And this is that trench warfare, right? Like, so here we are, we got something successful in front of us, but we're really just trying to learn our way at the same time. And then I found out another valuable part of business is sometimes you just don't enjoy it anymore because you have the fun side that everybody sees. You guys are sponsoring car shows and autocrosses, and you guys are going to SEMA every year. And oh my God, I want to, but they don't see me going home, stressing out, freaking out. Where am I going to come up with this 20 grand? We got to pay this, we've got to pay that,
Yeah.
shit, things are, there was just a lot of behind the scenes things that just kind of just, sometimes suck the fun out of the business. What I will say is I loved cars and I loved the industry. So that made it was enjoyed.
Yeah.
Because I still have my job at Platt, so I was still working full time doing all of that. And I really had to segregate. I basically viewed Maniac as a hobby.
Uh-huh.
I just said, you know what? I got to keep this as a hobby because if I take it too serious, I'm going to lose passion for this. Because I always tell people, if you ever want to ruin your hobby or passion, throw money at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when things it's just different.
100%.
So I kept Maniac as a hobby. And, we tried to, we of course, we grew with the curve. The movie comes out, the scene blows up, other stores move into town. Things are going great, but then after a while you kind of it loses its lackluster. You're doing the same thing. And yeah, And then JJ, we decided to kind of just go separate ways. I kept the business going. I took on some new partners. We moved to Tri-Cities because the market was changing.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much just in the retail, because that's when the internet came in. So everybody was buying shit online.
Right.
And then it was really pissing us off because they would bring their warranties to us, but they bought it online. It's like, that's not how this works.
Right.
Okay, so I was like, you know what? We're going to get more into the install side of things. So where the money was at was in Tri-Cities. That's when the drift scene started coming around. The motor swap thing was getting really, really big.
Yeah.
I took on another partner. That was his forte. That was going to be kind of more of our angle, was the higher end stuff, the turbos, the this, the that, the that. And it all sounded good on paper. Things were great. We get a nice store in Tri-Cities. The problem is we live in Yakima.
Yeah.
So I'd work at Platt. I'd get off at 3:30. I'd hop in my car. I would drive to Tri-Cities. I would be there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Then I would drive home.
Yeah. And that's a recipe to get burned out,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Yeah.
So after a while, it just, I don't want to do this anymore. I was getting married at, all the things. I was buying a house. I just kind of looked at my partners and I said, hey, look, you guys want to take this over? You guys can buy me out. And of course they were like, nah, so basically just dissolve the business. I was like, all right, that's cool. Fine. So I took all the inventory, moved it back to Yakima, put it in my shop. My business partners took off on me, left me holding the bag, all the debt, everything. So what I had to do was just basically over the next 8 years, pay it off.
Really?
Yep. I didn't claim bankruptcy. I just remember chipping away at it. All my tax returns money would go to be paying these big pockets of money that were owed. And
And so was this debt just from like inventory debt?
Yeah, it was just overall business debt. I'd made a couple mistakes in letting the business use some of my cash flow, and I never got paid back.
Yeah.
And then when I took on my partners, and I'm not gonna get into the names and stuff because it doesn't really matter, but let's just say I took on some partners that never came forward with their half of the money.
Gotcha.
So, the money that they were supposed to buy in the business, they never came with the money.
Yeah.
So I fronted that bill. I fronted the bill for the Tri-City store. I fronted all that money.
Yeah. So you fronted the transition, the startup for the transition,
thinking that I was going to get paid back.
Yeah. Like the next step of it. And then when it didn't work out, you got left kind of holding the bag of, all of those decisions.
I think when I shut down the business, I owed about $38,000. It was about whatever, it was somewhere in there. And that was another valuable business lesson right there.
Yeah.
Watch who you do business with. I'm going to tell you right now, friends are great. Friends are really hard to do business with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Just be wary. That money will cause problems. It always does. I don't care how good your friendship is. Money will cause a problem.
100%.
So you got to be 100% transparent about things. And you really have to, be honest with yourself and your partner about the direction you want your business to go. Because that's the other problem in partnerships, is your idea might not be their idea.
Yep.
And if they don't like your idea, they're going to be nice about it, but they're going to disagree with you.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have this little behind the scenes static, and that's going to kind of grow into other things.
Yeah. It starts bleeding into other avenues of your life. Right.
Right. So pretty soon you start kind of not being as tight, and you're just like kind of pissed off or argumentative, or you're very defensive about things.
Yeah.
He didn't like my idea, so I'm going to be an asshole about this. And pretty soon you get into this little pissing contest, and eventually your business partnership doesn't go. Now, that being said, if you do it correctly, you can make it work in a great way, but you have to be upfront in the beginning, have everything kind of laid out. So Maniac to me was honestly just a really good beta test.
Yeah, it wasn't a complete loss, right? Because you chalked up so many not only life lessons but business lessons, right? Like the stuff that you just spit out about a partnership is something that you don't learn until you get into that relationship, and then you got to start navigating through all of those difficult things, right? Like the money, the bills, the decisions in what direction to take the business, how we're going to spend the money, how we're going to grow the business. Are we going to grow the business? Do we want to keep it leveled out? Like there's all these things. And when it's one person driving the train, it's easy to drive the train, right?
Right.
Like there's one conductor, there's one person making decisions. But now when you have multiple people collaborating, if that vision 100% isn't clear and it isn't the same, then my experience, because I have a similar experience, but my experience with a partner is that if it's not laid out and things aren't transparent, and if the vision isn't the same, and when I say the vision, I mean the financial vision, the operating vision, not just the grand vision of, hey, let's grow the business, let's make a lot of money, right? There's other visions within the vision. What do we do with the money? What do we do with the profits? How much do we reinvest back into the business? What's our plan to grow the business? There's all these details that you have to agree on. And if you don't agree on all the details, man, it's a it's a recipe for things to get sideways real quick.
Oh, for sure. So one thing that I learned, so JJ, love him to death. He's one of my best friends. I learned a lot from JJ, even though we were complete polar opposites in the business world, but we complemented each other. One thing I learned from him is he's the hustler. Man, that guy, one thing I learned most from him is the diversification of a business, because that's one thing that JJ was always good at, was like, hey, we kind of conquered this. We need to start this now.
Yeah.
We're going to get into window tinting, or we're going to get into installing stereos, or we're going to get into, this, that, or the other thing. And I learned from him that diversifying your business is always a smart move.
Yeah.
Okay. And I hope one thing he learned from me is that just because you want to diversify your business, you still have to have all the infrastructure to diversify your business.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the window tinting. We brought on our buddy Gilbert, who was an awesome guy. It was a badass window tinter. And, we made a deal with him. We're like, hey, you get this and we get that.
Yeah.
And we'll schedule all these cars. Well, here's the thing, man, is, dude, we got so many cars scheduled, and he's one guy. He's like, I can't do this many cars in one night. And I'm like, well, shit, we have 8 people waiting. And JJ's like, yeah, dude, yeah. And I'm like, bro, you need to stop. Like, dude, you need to stop. Like,
Yeah.
we only have one installer. We only have X amount of square footage in the shop. So by the time we're doing like an air intake install and this and that, and then Gilbert has the bay filled up with another car with window tinting, and he had a job too, right? And so, you learn that little infrastructure. But with JJ, I learned that from him. Like, it's like, no, this could be a good thing, right? Like, and JJ, obviously, he's doing very well for himself. Like, I love that guy. Like, he's just like us.
Yeah.
He came from very, very humble beginnings, to where he's at today. And, I'm very proud of him, and what he's built, because, it is a lot of work. And that's one thing that people, like, we said, you don't understand where it all came from, where the beginnings started. And so in the Maniac days, being partners with JJ, I learned a lot, and we had a good partnership. We never really had any friction. It was just, if I remember correctly, he got a job as like an engineer at like Western RV,
Yeah.
like in the engineering department. Like, and I'll never forget. I was like, engineering? Like, you do that? He's like, yeah, bro. It was like CAD drawings and stuff. And he's just like, oh, okay, so hey, it was a good, whatever, it's a good gig. So moving on from that, we get into this thing where, we dissolve the business. You get all these lumps, I've got this debt now. I have to pay for this. I'm not a bankruptcy type guy. I pay my debts, man. And I'll never forget Becky that worked at US Bank. I remember when I paid off the money that I owed the bank on that loan. She's like, congratulations, you finally did it. And I just remember that was such a weight off my shoulders to be done paying for all that. Was great. And so moving on, I still work at Platt. I remember we closed the business, and I remember it was a very, very weird time, because it was the first time in my life that I only had one job. And I remember getting off work at Platt and going home and be like,
Fuck, what am I gonna
What do
do with
I
my
do
afternoon?
now? Like, you just sit here now. You just sit here. And me being OCD and the nonstop machine, I had to find something.
Yeah.
So in the midst of the Maniac days is when I met Rich Guerin, who owned Yakima Mixed Martial Arts,
Yeah.
and I met him through Jeremy Lopez, who was a good friend of mine, and would hang out at the shop all the time. And I remember Jeremy Lopez would come in sometimes with like a black eye or some BS, and I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? I
So,
mean,
what about what year about is this?
so this is back 06,
Okay.
2006-ish, 7-ish, right in there. We're getting into that realm. And Lopez comes to me, he's like, hey man, my buddy Rich needs to get some vinyl decals done for the gym. He was wondering if you'd be interested in doing it. I was like, yeah, I'd go take a look, So I go down. This is back. They were moving from their original location on Fruitvale to the Yakima Ave location on 5th. And they had these big bay windows. And I go there one day and I meet Rich and I have my tape measure and all my stuff. And he's like, hey, we start kind of bullshitting. And I'm measuring the windows and he tells me what he wants on it and the colors. I was like, all right, it's cool. And he kind of gives me a little rundown of the gym and all the stuff. And, super nice guy. And he's like, well, what do you think I'm looking at? And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I have to calc it all up. And he's like, well, would you be interested in trading for some training? And I'm like, bro, no. He's like, I can't go to work looking like that. Cause I worked at the counter at Platt, I can't, the guys that I knew that were in MMA were just black eyes and,
Yeah.
they were beat up a lot. And I'm just like, I can't go to work looking like that. My job doesn't allow me to do that. These guys worked in the back, like Lopez was a meat cutter.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't like he was out there doing retail sales and shit like that. And he's like, oh, no, man, it's not like that, blah, 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 this and that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. So I make the decals, I get them on the windows. It looks great. I had a medical issue so before I was really into weightlifting, me, my buddy, Randy, Mel, we did our 2-a-days and that was like our thing. And I remember I was like 222 at like 11% body fat. It was like, I was digging it, it was just kind of what I did all through high school as I lifted weights and things like that. Anyways, I ended up having a stroke. I didn't know that, but it messed up my nerves in my throat and I couldn't swallow solid foods.
Really?
Yeah, for like a year. So I had dropped down to like 145 pounds.
Holy shit.
Yeah, bro, it was bad. So I went through this whole year of not eating foods, having panic attacks. Nobody could figure it out. I finally ended up going to UW, met with a panel of doctors there. They ended up figuring it out because what I thought was an allergic reaction to some trail mix one time was not. It was a stroke.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't like a violent stroke. It just affected my nerves. And so I basically had to relearn how to eat because it felt like you were going to choke all the time.
Yeah.
And that, messes with your mind. So, here I am 145 pounds. I'm not really into weightlifting anymore because when you lose that, you're kind of like, man,
And it's a long road to bring that back.
Yeah, I just don't know if I want to do that. So this MMA thing comes around. And so I go to a class. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. I started with the Taekwondo thing because one of my buddies that I lifted with was he was a black belt in Taekwondo. And he's like, you need to come to the gym, check it out. I was like, all right. So I go to Taekwondo and, the people there are really nice and we're doing our thing. And I'm there for like 2 months, not even, well, I was barely a month. And I was like, cause I was told that we were going to do some jujitsu, some ground stuff, and I'm thinking, all right, the kick thing is cool, but like what happens when you get taken to the ground?
Yeah.
And oh yeah, we'll get into that. Well, it wasn't happening. So I was like, you know what, this isn't really for me. So I go and do this MMA thing. And, Rich is a really nice guy and the people there are super cool. And, yeah, that's when I kind of found out there's different levels of training, you have a fight team and then you have like your open classes and stuff. So was learning a lot. I was having a great time. I was like, this is a lot of fun, and what I liked about it was very 3-dimensional. Weightlifting is very 1-dimensional.
Yeah.
You go to the gym, you do your sets every 6 weeks, you switch your routine, your different muscle groups, this and that, blah, 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 blah. It's very monotonous, but it is kind of a social thing because I go there with my crew, we do our routines and we leave and yada, yada. Well, MMA is very different, extremely different, because everything you learn in MMA, you take with you for life.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I tell people, you might not qualify for X Games, but you can still ride the bike. Whereas in weightlifting, when you stop weightlifting, it doesn't go with you.
No, you lose it.
You lose it. You're fat. You're not benching anything. You're not squatting anything. You're not, blah, blah, blah. With MMA, it's not like that. When you learn how to box, you learn some jujitsu, you learn Muay Thai, those skill sets stay with you forever. They just do. Especially if you train at, the levels that we train at. And that's one thing that I loved about it, was it was very three-dimensional. It's kind of like swimming. You swim laps, you don't realize how much you're sweating, but it's a very good workout,
Yeah.
because it keeps your mind off of what you're trying not to drown. So with MMA, it's kind of the same thing. You're rolling, you're grappling, you're kicking, you're punching, and you're having a good time, and the people you're working with are awesome. And then you just leave there and you're just like, oh my God, I'm just, exhausted. It's great. It's a great workout. But then the life skills you take with you, and my main thing is I just wanted to learn to defend myself and my family.
Yeah.
That was all I really wanted out of MMA. It was just good overall self-defense. This is very reality based. That's what mixed martial arts is, the fight might start on the feet, but it'll eventually end up on the ground.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of have both dynamics, you got to kind of know what you're doing and things like that. So that's what made me fall in love with the sport. But then Rich and I's relationship really sparked because of the business.
Yeah.
I came from Maniac Motorsports, which was a very popular, hot, young person business.
Absolutely.
And then I meet this guy that has this very hot, young person sport business. Mind you, we're talking UFC single digits.
Yeah.
So you're talking about
the very early days of it.
Early days.
Yeah.
So when we were doing it, hell, MMA wasn't even legal in all 50 states in the United States.
Yeah.
It was still deemed illegal. In fact, I remember one of my first MMA shirts was a Venom shirt that says legalize MMA, because that's when we started it. And, Rich being a pro fighter with his background back in the late 90s, bare knuckle stuff, getting into the, well, if you ever followed the UFC back in the day, there was no weight classes.
Right.
There wasn't a really big set of rules. It was just like, well, you can't pull their eyeball out of their socket, but everything else is okay.
Yeah.
And, then what people know of it today is a very sanctioned, different broadcast of the sport. So here I had Rich, and I remember he was putting on a show over in Ellensburg, if I remember correctly. And he's like, man, I need some help putting the cage up, this and that. I was like, oh, man, I got you, bro. Let's go. And he's like, oh, and I was like, no, it's cool. Listen, So I hop in the truck and we go to Ellensburg and we set the cage up and, just kind of hit it off. And then, Rich was telling me about all the pitfalls in his business and, the struggles and the everybody's your friend when it's showtime and nobody wants to be around to help do all the grinding. And I was like, I know exactly what you mean, So we just clicked really well because of our business. My business experience is really how I met him and how I really meshed in with Yakima mixed martial arts. Rich and I hit it off, become really good friends and, trained all the time and eventually started coaching. He needed help with kids class because he was working at the city. So by the time he got off work, showered, cleaned up, he was barely making it to the gym. So I started helping him with kids class to kind of give him an extra half hour, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So I got my coaching hat kind of soaking wet back then. And, that faded into helping with the adult classes. I started running the background of the business with him, just kind of like helping him out, just helping him out. And, cause I wanted to see it grow because it was a really cool sport. It was really something that I think needed to happen in Yakima.
Yeah.
And so, and I enjoyed it. And I'm kind of that type of person, just like you, when I kind of get involved with it, I get involved with it,
right.
We're 100% we're in. And, that's kind of how that relationship grew all the way up until where it is today, and, that all sparks back from the experiences I had starting my own business with Maniac Motorsports back in the day. All those lumps, all those lessons, all that trench warfare. I was able to help Rich and kind of give him, feedback on what I experienced and things that I did and stuff like that. And, in retrospect, the same but different.
Uh-huh.
It's a very different business than what I was in with, retail sales of Maniac and all the car thing. But it really brought us together. And then it was funny because the network was really tight. Like everybody involved with MMA is a very tight knit family. Like today, my gym family is very, very sacred to me. Like
Yeah.
we all, like, I can call anybody on my fight team at any time and it'd be like, hey, I need this, I need that. And they're like, we got you, coach, no problem.
Yeah.
It's vice versa. Like I have fighters come to me all the time, like, hey man, financial this and that. It's like, bro, we got you, whatever. And so, we want to help everybody out. And that's very, very important when you're running a business is you got to look at all the dynamics, like you said, you want to be able to grow your business in a successful manner.
Right.
Okay. So one of the rules that I always made with Yakima MMA currently is if the business could not sustain itself, it would close. I'm not going to come out of pocket to try and rescue a business again.
Yeah. Cause you've lived through that.
I did that before. And as much passion as I had for it, in the end, I'm just not going to do that to myself,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you want to find something that you're passionate about. Obviously, everybody's goal in life is to do something that they enjoy to do.
Right.
And let's face it, there's not a lot of jobs out there that everybody's like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
They do exist, but there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, bro, I hate my job. I hate my life. And it's like, okay, well, you can fix that.
Yeah.
But it's a scary thing, man.
It is.
So, my whole goal back in the day of cars, Maniac, Yakima, MMA, blah, 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 this and that. My whole goal always in life was to get into real estate.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I always knew is that never gets cheaper.
No, it doesn't, man. And that was actually the next thing on the show notes, man, is, that's something that both of us have gotten into over the years, man. And, what kind of sparked your interest in real estate?
Well, obviously, I know a lot of people that are in the real estate game and they always seem to be doing very well.
Yep. Yep.
One of the lessons that I learned young was residual income is the best income.
Yeah. Mailbox money, baby.
Nothing replaces residual income. So for all you watching, it is a great day when the rents come in or whatever, but there is a lot of behind the scenes that
goes into that.
Sometimes takes the flair out of that.
Yeah.
So, dealing with a lot of the electrical contractors and contractors in general, housing is obviously I know a lot of people that buy and sell, build and sell.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a really good deal. But what nobody told me, it's funny, everybody talks highly of it, but nobody ever wants to tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
It's a cartel, bro. And I'm going to tell you. So how this all sparked for me was like, I want to do this. But then there was like, oh yeah, it's so awesome, man. You love it. And I was like, well, how do you get started? Oh man, dude, I got to go mow my yard.
You just got to figure it out.
Yeah, man. So it's like, hey, thanks for the heads up, bro. Like, okay. Yeah. So I remember, what was it? 2017. Yeah, it was like 2017. I decided to pay everything off. I got tired of credit cards and interest rates and all this bullshit.
Yeah.
So 2017, I put it down the grindstone and I paid everything off. Cars. All I had was my mortgage.
Yep.
It was great. I was like, it sucked because, there was a lot of money out, and I was just like, shit. But then
there's a lot of cutting back, a lot of making sacrifices.
But what was cool is after a couple months of getting used to not having to pay a bunch of shit was like, I like this.
Well, yeah, not only do you like it, but you start seeing your bank account grow, right? It's like,
it's like, oh, you want another TV cash, no big deal. Like, oh, it was great having some money, not having to stress. Like,
right.
Yeah, I wasn't, did I want to go buy a brand new car? Oh, hell yeah. There was plenty on the market. I was like, oh my God, I'd love to have that. But I didn't want another car payment, man.
Right.
I really just didn't. I kind of grew accustomed of not having to do that. And it was really kind of nice because then it really made life funner. Like it just wasn't so stressful. And so, which by the way, you know, you listening to that just, I just didn't like walk in and be like, you're paid, you're paid, you're paid. No, it didn't work that way. Like there was a lot of toys sold.
Yeah.
There was a lot of crying, you know, like you had to let go of some things to,
There was
yeah, that was a trench warfare I was running through. And trust me, coming from my background, selling toys off is not easy. Okay. That's not something that I like to do.
But you made sacrifices to put yourself in a better situation.
Right. So all this money that I could have went and bought another 69 Camaro with, that I just probably didn't need to have, but I really wanted, because cars are like shoes to me.
Yeah.
I got to have them. I just said, no, I'm not buying. No. And you know what sucks, Josh? And you know, because you're in car game.
Yep.
You used to paint cars. Every time that you don't want to buy a car, guess when the best deals come?
That's when they come up.
When you don't want to spend the money. They're like, hey, bro, my buddy's selling. You remember that 67 GTO you've been after for like 5 years? Yeah. Dude, he wants to sell it now. And I'm like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
What's he want for it? He said he'd take 30 grand for it. And I was like, are you serious? It's only got 18,000 miles on it. All original GTO. I was like, oh, dude, no, I can't buy it.
I can't buy it.
Can't buy it.
Yeah.
Can't. So here I put myself 2017. I decided to pay everything off, which was great. Then I, being involved with all the sports and people that I knew, I met a guy that owned an apartment complex, and he had called me one day because he needed some electrical stuff for repair he was doing on this. And he didn't live here in Yakima. He lived at North, I think Bellingham. He's an older guy, super nice guy named Larry. He's like, yeah, I got your number. I was wondering if you could help me out. You know, you work for Plaza. I was like, yeah, what do you need? So it was like an outlet and some silly stuff.
Just some simple shit.
Yeah, random shit.
Yeah.
So I meet this guy at the apartment. I bring him his bag of parts. You know, he pays for it and all the stuff. And then we just start kind of chit chatting. And he's like, yeah, this is the last property I own on the east side of the state. You know, I bought it off my brother back in 08 because of the crash and this and that and the other thing. Pretty nice place. I was like, all right, that's cool, man. It's like, shoot, you know, I was just joking, like, you know, when you're ready to sell it, give me a call, you know? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. So over the, you know, the course of the next year or two, you know, he would call me when he was coming to town to fix something.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I need this. Hey, I need that. I was like, yeah, cool. Right. And I would always joke with him, hey, you ready to sell that place? Because, you know, he'd always hem-haw having to drive all the way over here to take care of this shit. And he's like, no. And finally, one day he calls me and he's like, hey, Jeremy. He's like, hey, Larry. He's like, yeah, I need to replace an AC outlet, this and that. And I was like, yeah, man, I got you, no problem. And I give him his stuff, and he kind of puts his hands on his hips and he's like, you know what? I think I'm ready to sell this place. And I was like, no way. And he's like, yeah, I think it's time. I was like, okay, well, what do you want for it? You know? And he's like, well, I think it's worth this. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, let me get a hold of my bank, you know? And he's like, yeah, you know, just get a hold of me. I was like, all right, cool. So I call the bank, and I get in contact with actually Jeremy Lopez's ex works for the bank, and that's what she does, is home loan stuff. And so I call her because, you know, we're friends, and I know, you know, she knows the background. She's like, oh yeah, this is great. You're gonna need 20% down. And I was like, whoa, what? Back up. She's like, well, yeah, it's a commercial loan. And I was like, what the hell is that? She's just like, I was like, I didn't put anything down when I bought the house. She's like, okay, yeah, doesn't work the same.
Yeah, it's a little different ball game.
This is commercial, and it's an investment property, so you have to come up with 20% down. And I'm like, okay, there goes that dream. I was like, so I don't have $100,000 cash.
Yeah.
So the grind comes on. I go home. I start thinking about it. I'm like, all right, I got to come up with this money. This will be a good future investment for the kids.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the sacrifice. So I go out to the garage and I start looking at all the toys, and I'm like, I can sell that. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to sell this.
Yeah.
So I start with the motorhome. got rid of that. Then it came the boat. And the boat was really hard because my kids were crying and that was our thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, look, guys, like this is for the greater good of your future. We can get another boat. Okay. But I don't think I'll ever get another opportunity to get this property. Of course, my kids being little, they don't understand any of this shit. They're just
Right.
like, Dad, don't sell the boat, blah, blah, blah. And I sell the boat. I sell off the motorhome. I sell off a couple things. I end up getting this bag of cash. And, you know, this is 2020.
Yeah. So this is right around pandemic
Oh,
time.
check this out. Day one of pandemic, I had to hand this guy $100,000 cash.
Whew.
With no, like, it wasn't a bank loan.
Yeah.
So if these people decided to not pay rent, he'd default on a loan, keep my $100,000 and get his apartment back.
Yeah. That's a scary deal, man.
So I'm over here like freaking out because all I'm hearing is like, oh, people don't have to pay rent. People don't have to do anything. And I'm like, what kind of bullshit is this? Like, okay, does that mean the bank doesn't have to collect my payment?
Right.
Like that, you know, this whole scamdemic thing was bullshit from the jump. I mean, let's be honest.
Absolutely.
It should have been shut down from the top down, not the bottom up. This was 100%. A bunch of crap. You're telling me that my tenants don't have to pay rent, but I'm still responsible for my bank now.
Yeah.
That's not the way that should work. So, but anyways, I'm not going to get into that. I call Larry and I'm voicing my concern. And he's like, yeah, I get it, Jeremy. And then his wife gets on the phone. She's like, look, Jeremy. She goes, maybe this just wasn't meant to be. And I was like, no, I know it was meant to be. So I said, let's just do it. Screw it. So I basically handed over the cash. We drew up the contract. I'm the proud owner of this apartment complex. I'm excited, but I'm scared at the same time. You know, now I have all this responsibility, but I get into it. And one thing I learned really early was, you know, have a good relationship with your tenants. Make sure you take care of things. And, you know, you just ask for the respect back. And so far, so good, man. I've been really lucky. But I don't charge, like right now, currently, I'm almost $300 under market.
Yeah.
But I have really good renters. You know, they're all single parents or, you know, they're on, you know, budgets. And I just don't feel like going to them and be like, yeah, I got to have another $250 out of you.
Yeah.
I think it's as long as it's not costing me any money, the long game is the property long run, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Owning the property. So
yeah.
I'm okay as long as it's paying for itself. I don't have to make a big stack of cash off of it. But that's just my philosophy. So I've had really good renters. I've had a really good experience overall. I've only had one person I've ever had to deal with that was kind of a nightmare, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I try and get in there, like as soon as something breaks, boom, I get it fixed that day. The next day. The tenants really like that. So things have been really well. So I get into this apartment complex, which is a commercial property, because I found out anything over 4 doors is commercial.
Yep.
And so everything is completely different in commercial law.
Yep.
An appraisal is not $600. It's like $6,000.
Yep.
A loan is nowhere near structured the same as a residential loan. So here I am learning the pitfalls again of real estate and commercial real estate versus non-commercial, and the do's and don'ts, and the scary stuff and the good stuff. And so I get into this property, and that has always kind of been my MO. Was I got back into the muscle car thing to get into real estate. So me and my buddy Jeremy Lopez started buying Camaros and Chevelles and short box trucks, and we started flipping and selling to get this cash to get into the real estate game. And that's kind of how it started. Was basically I love cars, and I will never forget my dad. He used to freak out on me all the time because I remember we show up at the shop and we have everything from 67 to 73 Camaros sitting in a line.
Yeah.
We have all the first gen and the second gens, you know, split bumpers, 67, 68, 69s, just sitting there. My dad's like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, these are all going. And he's like, are you crazy? And I was like, bro, can't keep them, right?
Yeah.
We bought them to sell.
So you guys are hustling. You're buying cars, desirable cars.
Yep.
Fixing them up, flipping them, making some money, parlaying that money into real estate deals.
Into real estate.
Okay, so for the listeners, this is very similar to the plan that I lay out with getting into your first house, fixing it up, using that equity to flip it, using that equity to get yourself into the next deal, right? Whether that's, the next bigger house, starting your business, using that money to flip more houses. Jeremy's doing the same thing, but with cars, right? And so what I want people to understand is there's multiple ways to level yourself up, right? You just have to get creative. You have to think outside of the box. You got to be willing to hustle, man. You got to put the work in. And Jeremy's a fine example of just getting out there and making shit happen instead of waiting for things to happen.
You got to be disciplined too, man. That was one of the hardest things with dealing with cars is you want to keep them all.
Yeah.
When you're an avid collector and all these cars mean something to me in my life because my dad met my mom in a 67 SS396.
Yeah.
Muscle cars have been my life. Like cars, I relate to everything in my life to cars, what I was driving at the time, what my parents had, yada, yada. These are what create all these memories. So when I'm buying and selling these things, it was really tough to part with them because
Yeah.
you got to remember, you got to be very disciplined in your end goal. So yeah, it's cool to have the car, but then you're selling it and you're like thinking, okay, well, I'm going to use this to buy this. And then after I get this thing established, I can go back and buy these cars.
100%. Yeah.
They might be way more than what they are today, but if you truly want to have them, there's where there's a will, there's a way,
Right.
And you get into this mindset to where you just kind of focus like, okay, real estate's the game for me. Because what I wanted was the residual income.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to get into that to where, maybe I don't have to work until I'm 72 years old.
Right.
Maybe I can cut out at 60, 65, 64, and then have this thing over here plus my retirement, So getting into that, like my dad, he had no exit strategy. He's from the generation where you just work and then you show up and die one day.
Yeah.
Their retirement, things like that. It was never portrayed to him either. Like he never was taught any of this. And then, towards the end, that's what me and my dad, I was really trying to help him with his, because my dad had a very successful business.
Yeah.
And, it was a very niche market and, but he had no exit strategy. And I'll never forget a lot of the last conversations that we had together was like, how we can get him out of his business and on the retirement road. And, that really resonated with me because all of us have to have an exit strategy.
Right.
Okay. So getting in is one thing, but getting out needs to be another. How long do you want to work?
Yeah.
And can you afford to retire and enjoy yourself or not? And these are all the questions that these 30-year-olds need to be 25-year-olds need to be asking themselves now.
Absolutely.
Like, do you want to work until you're 70?
I know I don't.
I don't. I mean,
don't.
right now, what are we at? 67, I think, for retirement.
Yeah, something
right now,
like that.
we're like 67, 68 years old. And I'm thinking, dude, I'm about to turn 49 and it hurts right now. Like,
yeah,
it's like, do you have another? Okay, so I've been at Platt 28 years. Do I have another 20 years in me? I mean, because I think by the time I reach retirement age at Platt, I'll be there 48 or 49 years.
Yeah,
that's a long. No, I love
dude.
Platt. I love the company. Like I don't have, but it's like that's just a long time to do something.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So obviously, people need to really realize when getting into owning your own business, that is the perk. Is you start steering your own ship.
Right.
But then you have to have an exit strategy. And like for my dad, for example, I asked him, are you going to sell the business or, well, I don't even know what it's worth or who would want to buy it. Or, you need to start grooming somebody then to, maybe take over your business, buy it from you, whatever. Or are you just going to close the doors and walk away and, then figure out what you're going to live off of? These are all things that we had these conversations about. And it really snaps something inside you like, okay, man, well, dude, I really, I should start putting my stuff together too. If something happens to me tomorrow, are my kids and everybody going to know what to do with all of this stuff? Now, I own, 3 properties, commercial properties. And the plan is to give one to each kid. And, you have this grand plan and you have all this kind of thought out in your head, but then the state gets involved. And then we start talking about a completely different subject, which is affecting us all today.
Absolutely.
Is, the state that we live in is really not business friendly.
Not at all.
They're not.
Not at all.
They want all of the pie and they want you to work for it. So then you start asking yourself, do I want to retire in this state? Can I retire in this state?
Yeah.
You know, what do I do with all these properties? If I sell them, I'm going to get waxed with, you know, capital gains and all these other taxes that they want from you. And if I give it to my kids, you know, do I put it in a trust? You know, because you start hearing a lot of things from other people in the financial world, like, oh, you need to do a trust, you need to do this, you need to do that. So then you start exploring all these, what I call rabbit holes. And, you know, you really start solidifying your portfolio, your business, and maybe you don't own properties. Maybe you just own a business.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe then you got to figure out what you want to do with that business. And it's called adulting and it sucks. Because I mean, there's really no easy way to say it. Like,
Yeah.
And this is exactly what people don't talk about is this fucking trench warfare right here. This is the stress of a business owner that people are like, oh, yeah, he drives a fancy car. He does this. It's like, yeah, but that guy goes home and freaks out, you know, and has all of these things. And I'm sure you live under a house of cards just like I do.
Absolutely.
If
man.
something happened to you, you know, or one piece goes awry, it causes a big disruption. You have employees.
Yep.
You have people that rely on you and your business for their well-being too. And when we start talking about things like shopping local, you know, these things resonate with people. It never resonated with me before until I got involved with local business.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you know, there's a really important piece to all of this. People work for these companies.
Yeah.
People
absolutely.
that have to pay rent, car payments, all these things. It's really easy to go and trash a business or talk shit or be upset, but you got to really kind of think about the big picture of what you're doing here. Like other people rely on those businesses, you know, granted, you know, you might've had a bad experience through whatever. Okay. To me, like I'm not a big internet guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really, I have like 3 friends on Facebook. I'm not even friends with my mom. You know, I get shit for it all the time, but yeah, I mainly got on like Facebook for, marketplace.
Yep. Same
Because we were doing cars and Craigslist just disappeared.
Yeah. Craigslist fell off.
What the hell happened? What the hell happened here? You know? And I was like, oh, you got to do this Facebook thing. I was like, I don't want to do Facebook. They're like, oh, you have to. And I was like, so yeah, I had to get into the Facebook thing. And then everybody's like, why didn't you accept my friend request? It's like, cause I don't want to know what you ate for dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to talk, call me, let's talk. Like, let's talk.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to know everything that's going on in your life. And if you want me to know, then you can tell me. And I get it. You know, the social media thing is it's a double-edged sword. Like, oh, you use it to communicate and stay in touch. And I'm like, yeah, but then sometimes you hear a lot of shit you just don't want to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Or be involved with, or be
involved with drama.
And so it's been really hard because I think all of us have sometimes get sucked into the vortex of social media and posts and all this stuff. And like lately I've been watching a lot of reels, you know, and I like those reels because they're funny, they're entertaining. But then I look at myself as like, I've been doing this now for 23 minutes. Okay, I need to stop. Like, this is bullshit. But as a business tool, that I got into marketplace because of the car thing. If you want to buy, sell, you know, find cars, you just
that's where you got.
It's a great tool for that, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also a lot of evil that comes with it, you know. And so I've really tried to distance myself. Like I'm not on Instagram. I'm literally, that's it. Facebook. That's it. And I think maybe it's 4 friends. It's people that was in the car network with me. And, you know, using that today, it's been kind of a blessing because I don't really, even running the gym, you know, owning and operating Yakima MMA right now, I have social media people.
Yeah.
I pay other people to do that because I don't want to do that. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
You know, very busy person. I've always been that way. I think I get asked that the most. Like, how do you do all this shit? It's just how I'm wired. So if you go back to when I told you when I closed Maniac down, I remember going home from Platt and not knowing what to do. I literally sat on my couch and I'd be like, is this what everybody does? They just come home and sit here?
Yeah.
Because I've always had 2 jobs. I do this and then I go immediately to this.
See, and I think that mindset or that personality, you know, I'm wired the exact same way, right? I mean, those are like those are the things that are just ingrained inside you that separate the high output people from the people who are cool with getting off at 4,
Yeah.
going home, chilling for the afternoon, reading a book. And there's nothing wrong with
I
that.
envy those people.
You know, like that's my wife, man. Like she gets home, like she wants to chill out, hang out with her dogs, read a book. And that's, you know,
I envy
me. It's like, dude, I get home and like, I gotta be doing something.
I know. It's just, now that I'm getting older and stuff, it is getting, you know, like, you're just like, God, I get so mentally exhausted, but it's so, like you said, it's so ingrained in you. Like right now, you know, I go to work, do my thing, and then I come home and then I get ready and I go to the gym and I'm there till 8, 9 o'clock at night. That's normal.
Yeah.
And I remember like even like if I take a night off to go watch my son's baseball game or soccer or something, I, I should probably just jam down to the gym. But it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, I'm just gonna go home. And I feel weird, but it's like, you know, that needs to happen.
It does
because,
need to happen.
You know, you do get
Yes.
burned out. And
Yes.
so right now in my life, you know, running Yakima MMA, which, you know, it's busy. It's blowing up. It's great. It's a blessing and a curse. You know, as our fight team gets bigger, our athletes get more, you know, right now, like we're about to turn 4 of our amateurs pro this year.
That's
So
badass,
yeah,
man.
we're going to start stepping into, you know, we're going to have like 6 or 7 pros out of the gym. So the traveling is going to get more, you know, we're going to have to start doing fights in California, Nevada, you know,
Yeah.
possibly Chicago, you know, Florida, you know, you're going to start, there's going to be a little more dedication to that too. But at the same time, you still have this local business that you're running. That's a lot of fun. And again, I'm keeping Yakima MMA as a hobby because I feel mentally, if I start saying, no, this is my, you know, then it just starts losing its lackluster to me. And I get mad at it.
Yeah.
It makes me big mad because it's like, oh, I don't want to go deal with these problems right now. You know, sometimes I just want to go home and chill, or I just want to go do something else. And the beauty about it is I go back to cars.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I feel stressed out or I feel like I kind of need that reprieve, I hop in one of my cars and I just go cruise around town or go run errands in it. And I just feel way better.
That's awesome, man.
Chill out.
Yeah.
And I love cars. And that brings me back to center. The same with training. Like I was telling the gal downstairs, and she was asking me, you know, oh, do you know, you run Yakima MMA? I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, that's awesome. I was like, yeah, I feel like Matthew McConaughey. What? I was like, yeah, I get older and they stay the same age. Because that's how it feels, man.
Yeah.
You've been doing it. I mean, I've been doing it since 06. I'm like 20 years in. You know, Lopez is like 21 years in. And, you know, a lot of my coaching staff is 15 years. We've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, we forgot more than we remember. The sport is so evolving so fast. You know, jiu-jitsu, everything, Muay Thai, it's so just progressively fast. It's kind of like when, you know, racing motocross growing up. You know, I remember racing motocross. Crusty Demons of Dirt came out, you know, and the freestyle movement was like, oh my God, a knack is the heel clicker. Holy shit.
And they just kept pushing it.
Yeah,
pushing
if you ain't doing a
it.
triple backflip, you're not even on the podium.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's every sport that I've seen, like my son's soccer, you know, my son played academy soccer since he was 5 years old. I remember watching him when they were like 9 or 10. Me and a couple parents are sitting there watching these kids hat trick and all these crazy passes. And I'm like, dude, this is like college level when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like these kids are like phenomenally good and they're only like 10. And you just look at every sport and how the evolution is so much faster these days. And then you get involved with one and you're like my youngest son is playing baseball. I about shit my pants when I went to go buy him a bat.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And why is this bat $500?
Yeah.
He's 13.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, does this follow him to college? Like, what is this? You know, and the kid at Dick's was so funny because he's like, well, welcome to the most expensive sport that we sell. And I'm like, this is getting ridiculous. Like, this is sports though, right? Like, I remember when we did sports in school, you were responsible for like a mouthpiece and a cup and some cleats.
And that's it.
And they gave you pads and everything else. Now it's like, bro, like, so my kid gets outfitted for baseball, $1,200.
That's crazy.
And like every kid you see walk on the field has $1,000 plus in his backpack.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is just crazy. Like this
is.
and it's just high school, whatever. But then you go like mixed martial arts, like the progression of that sport is so like jujitsu is just always evolving. Muay Thai, everything is just always evolving faster. These athletes are coming to us 16, 17, 18 years old, and they are training for less than a year, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
They just pick it up. They execute, they got natural talent. So that's really what makes the sport exciting right now, at least in what I do. It's super fun to watch them grow. And then one of my biggest jewels has been kids class. I've been coaching kids class for 18 years, pretty much solidly about 18 years. And the coolest thing about that is I always tell coaches, if you ever want to learn how to coach or test yourself, go coach kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Because those guys will bring out everything that annoys you. But the beauty is if you could teach a kid, you could teach an adult.
Yeah.
So the way that I break things down, the way that I learned to break things down was to basically teach it to a 7-year-old. Well, you transfer that to the adult world and it resonates really fast because you're like, and I've been told that a few times, like, man, I really like the way that you break things down. It's like, that's the way that it works for me is when I'm like, even when I'm doing a class with my professor, in jujitsu, when he's teaching a move, I'm literally calculating how to break that down. So I'm not learning it the same way that just somebody just doing the sport does.
Right.
It's a completely different vision for me because I'm like, I got to learn how to break that down. I don't necessarily have to, but that's just the way my mind works. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes it annoys me because sometimes I'm like, I just want to drill and do this. I don't want to have to. But that's how I, progressively learn things is like, okay, your foot goes here. Okay. Yep. You got to grab it. Okay, cool. Yep. And after you do it for so long, you kind of just learn how to break things down and it mentally makes sense to you. And I like that because it keeps you sharp.
Yeah.
The one thing that I love about the gym is it keeps you young because you don't have a choice. Because you're going to go in there, you're going to get rolled up, you're going to, you're going to have to push yourself. You have to get out of your comfort zone. The bad thing about it is being that the age group that I'm in, I've already gone through a back surgery and I can't feel my left leg. It's numb. And I've had all these injuries from the extreme sport background. I race motocross, I race stand-up jet skis, rode street bikes, we did all the stupid shit, and they tell you, yeah, it'll catch up with you. It does, it does, the steel plates in my leg and all those things. So when you go and train, you got to be conscious of that too. You want to go home, be able to relax. So you got to learn to where the gas pedal is at.
Absolutely.
Versus how you want to feel the next 3 days, because you're not 22 years old anymore.
Right.
Mentally we are.
Mentally.
Mentally, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you're like, hey,
absolutely.
Bro, hey, no problem. You didn't do this. And then you do that and you're like, does anybody have any ibuprofen? So, and I want to make a shirt actually that says, my jujitsu has survived off of ibuprofen and cold plunge tubs.
Yeah.
Cause that's what I do is I cold plunge every day because I was taking like 2,400 milligrams a day of ibuprofen.
Yeah.
And that's not good for you.
It's not.
And so I buy this cold plunge tub for the gym and I just completely fall in love with it. And so yes, I am co-signing on cold plunging. If you want to try it, hit me up. You can try it. Yes, it sucks.
It does. I have one at my house. I use it.
You feel so good.
You do, man. But it's like for me, it makes your body feel great. But for me, it's like when you can keep yourself in there for 3 minutes, it's like you're overcoming something that's very difficult.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, for me, I think it gives me more mental sharpness, but it's like, you're making yourself push through something that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And when you get done with it, you're like, all right, like that wasn't that bad. I could do that.
Yeah, you got to be mentally tough, and that's the thing is any workout, that I do these days. Like I work out with Les Henderson. He's a beast, man. YPD officer. I've known Les since he was a kid. I was friends with his dad. He was one of our fighters, and him and I work out together almost every day. And it's good because you get pushed. Literally, even at this age, I have to, like a normal workout is cold plunge for 3 minutes. Get out, change, run 2 miles, do a 40-minute circuit, and then sit in the sauna for 20 minutes.
Nice.
It's like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes normal to you. So then when you take one of those out of the equation, you're like, I feel like I cheated myself here a little bit.
Yeah.
But it keeps you young, so you want to keep that threshold, and working out with people that you click with, like Les, really helps me in staying healthy and running the gym.
Right.
Because that is one thing about running that type of business is, you still have to stay connected to it.
Yeah.
It's not like you could just, you could sit back in an office and just do the books and be the behind the scenes guy, but you want to be hands on, you want to have that relationship with your fighters. You want to have the relationship with your coaches. You want to get in there, get your hands dirty.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And there's got to be a level of respect, right? When they see you out there getting after it and staying fit at the, and you're not old by any means, but you're older.
I'm older.
And so it's like, but you're out there, I got really back into the fitness stuff about 2 years ago. And, man, dude, like I did it cause I was really struggling mentally with some stuff. Mm-hmm. And, it's changed my life, man. But doing it consistently and regularly, and so it's like, I'm on a 6-day rotation and, I just hit it every day in the afternoons. A lot of the times me and my wife hit it together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, it's so much more productive than going home and burying your problems in a bottle. Yeah. Right. Because there's several guys I know, business owners that do that. It's like, man, it's like, I got to unwind. I got to let loose a little bit. So they'll go home and, have, 1 or 2 cocktails, and then it turns into 5 or 6. And then the next thing you know, you got a drinking problem on your hand.
Yeah.
And you're going down a real lonely road.
Well, and it's how you cope with things, right? Your body's a machine. It's a program. It's a computer. You program it. You got to go home and you got to have that drink.
Yeah.
Just like cigarettes or anything
Absolutely.
else. So yeah, it's the same for exercise or working out for me too. Like, going back, I lifted weights. That's what I did. And that was a really big stress reliever. And one of the things that really solidified my workout routine is when Jeremy Lopez lived with me. Him and I would run a 5K every day. That was our thing. We would get off work, we would meet up, we'd get our running gear on, and we'd go run a 5K every single day. This is for like 3 years.
That's a lot.
This is just what we did. And I remember there would be a day we wouldn't run and we were just so freaked out because it was your total release.
Yeah. It's an outlet.
In a good way. Yeah. So you're like working out, you're doing your run, you're doing your little lift routine. And it is such a huge stress. So any business owner out there, especially, dealing with running a business and all the bullshit that comes with it, I think having a healthy outlet is a must.
Oh, it's key, man.
And you should find a workout to do. I'm going to advocate for that. I'm not saying you have to do MMA or whatever, but there's CrossFits, there's, get something in that really pushes you mentally and helps you focus on other things, because without that, you're just going to really just burn your candle at both ends.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I would have given up on a lot of it if I didn't have it. And that's one of the main things that drives me. Besides my kids, is obviously, I want to be healthy for my kids and be around for a while for them. I'm not going to be here forever. None of us are, but I want to extend my stay.
Absolutely.
And I want to be functional as long as I can, because one of the things is going back to when I bought a Lamborghini, one of the things behind that car was, it wasn't so much that I wanted it. It was so much that I was going to prove a point to my kids and the naysayers.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you're not, whatever. You're not going to blah, blah, blah. It's like, so I buy this thing and it shows up and people are like, what the hell? And then everybody's like, oh my God, this and that. And it's like, it's a great car. It's fun. It's cool. But I bought it for 2 reasons. One, I bought it to prove to my kids that if you work hard, you can get these things.
Yeah. Anything.
You got to hustle and grind to get it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't show up. And then 2, I wanted to be able to get in and out of the damn thing before I can't, because once you get to a certain age, you ain't buying shit like that no more, man. Right. Like these lowriders and these cars that are, you're not getting in and out of those bad boys. You're going to go back to a truck or an SUV that has heated seats and all the things. And so you kind of put these little, like I told you, cars mark periods of my life, and that car in particular was just one thing that I bought to prove that point to my kids. That was primary reason behind that car.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit anything else in my collection. It's like muscle cars, and then you have this thing. And it's like, it's great. But It's not one of my favorite cars. It's a cool car, but it's not one of my favorites. I guess it's one of my favorites, but it's not the favorite. So I go back to that everything I do is to kind of lead my kids into knowing that things are possible.
100%, man.
No matter how tired you are, no matter how many naysayers there are. And that's one of the things that people really need to understand is your friends are going to be your biggest fucking enemies sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
They are a bunch of naysayers.
Yeah.
And you really got to watch who you surround yourself with.
Dude, it's true, man. Misery loves company.
I love it.
They love it, and it's, the naysayers, it gives me a ton of fuel too, man. Like I've had some people kind of make jabs at me for having this little podcast. And it's like, I'm doing it because it's fun. It helps my mental health. And I just like having conversations, but some people will shit on that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not trying to flex. I'm not trying to do anything. Like, I'm just trying to like have conversations with people and bring some value to like these younger guys that are looking at entrepreneurship. They are looking at starting businesses, and obviously like I'm going to plug my business at the same time.
Of course.
Just like you're here as a guest, you're plugging your business. But yeah, man, having a tight circle of people who support you it's huge. It's so big, man. It's so big. And and I've said this on other episodes, but having a wife that supports you, like having a wife that's all in on you, not like, well, you're going to start the business, like that's scary, but having a wife that's like, I believe in you. I believe you can do that. Like, let's fucking go. Like, let's get it.
And that is huge because, I have a lot of friends that got successful and they lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And then, I've always been in the corner. It's like, dude, like, okay, the American way is just designed that way.
100%, man.
We love the underdog until he's on top. Then we just want to see him lose.
It's true, man.
So
that's so true.
Let's take a fucking Yankees fan, right? Like, everybody hates the Yankees. I'm not a baseball guy, but I'm like, and that's like, why? Is it because they have a lot of rings? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it like Mike Tyson. When he was coming up, everybody's like, and then when he was on top, people were like, they just wanted to see him.
They wanted to see him get knocked out.
Conor McGregor. I mean, just go down the American lineup of take any sport. Like, we support the underdog until they're there.
Yeah.
Then we want to see him crash. It's almost like a thing. And I've always like, one of the things that personally learned was, you remember the clothing brand Tap Out.
Yeah.
Okay. Tap Out was huge.
Huge.
Back in the day when MMA was first a thing. I love Tap Out. In fact, at my gym on the wall, I have one of the original Tap Out shirts that was bought out of their car. Okay. So when Skyscrape and those guys started they started that business, that shirt was bought out of a car.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why that shirt's on the wall at the gym, is because that's an iconic thing in our sport, right? So all the shirts up at my gym have some kind of meaning to either a period of time in our sport or something that was meaningful to us in our gym. That one there in particular is that. So I use this story a lot because this is what resonated the most with me. Is you have this company Tap Out, super popular, going into a very popular sport. Everybody's wearing Tap Out. All the fighters, everybody's wearing it. Then they go global. Tap Out makes a deal with, I think, Silver Star or whatever, and ends up going into the Bon or Macy's and all these stores, or Champ Sport. I can't remember what it was. And then everybody's just started shitting on them. Like, oh, fucking sellouts and this and that. At the same time, me and Jeremy Lopez had started our own clothing company, RFA, and we were making fight shirts for our local guys. And it was, a real local company, nothing major. But, we were kind of in that industry. And I remember going to shows, setting up a booth, and then these other clothing vendors would just start talking shit about Tap Out. And I'm just looking at them like, bro, you're telling me in your shit ass van out there that if some multi-million-dollar company came up to you and said, you know what, we want to buy your stuff and put it in all our stores, and we're going to write you this big fucking check.
I mean, that's the goal, right?
Right?
I mean, that's the goal.
You're going to tell me, I'm no sellout. I'm going to stay in my 78 Chevy van with no gas. Like, you are so full of shit, dude, man. Like,
it's the same shit with like bands that are coming up, right? It's like, oh, they sold out. They went, they went main. It's like, isn't that the goal?
That's what you're doing it for. Now, okay, there's a small niche group that's probably like, no, I'm going to stay to my roots. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. Like, I use that analogy because it was such a huge thing in our sport when that tap out thing happened. People were just like, these guys are sellouts. They fucking suck. And I'm like, why do they suck? They suck because they're now making money at what they love to do. You got to remember, Tap Out was one of the only companies that I ever remember that would go to some town in fucking Oklahoma and grab a kid that had no means of getting to a bigger show, and they would pay his way and help him train to where he could get exposure. Not one other company did that.
Yeah.
Venom didn't do that. None of them did. It was Tap Out that they had a TV show going. Like, things were great. Like, I really liked that company, and I love their roots because they came from a background like how we came up, selling shit out of a car. And, you know, they made it to a global stage and it was great. And then Mass passed away. And unfortunately, the company just kind of fell apart because he was kind of that glue, you know, he was kind of the face of that company. Tap Out is now making a resurgence. I'm starting to see the gear pop back up. And I don't know, you notice you have kids.
Oh, yeah.
I always tell my kids, because we were born in the 1900s, right? You know, we're old. But I'm going to tell I'm telling all these young ones right now, everything you think is cool was cool with us first.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The 80s was by far the best decade to grow up in. I don't care what anybody says, bro. We had the coolest movies, the coolest clothes.
Dude, and the best part, it was no cell phones in the 80s and 90s.
Shit, no, man.
It's like you could get away with shit.
Bro, I'm honestly thinking about getting into fucking BMX bikes again. Man,
yeah.
Because they're, oh my God, $4 or $5 grand for like a GT Performer. I was like, dude, I had 2 of those. And, you know, I used to just throw them down on the ground. And it's funny because you look at all the stuff that is super popular right now, all came from the 80s, right?
Yeah.
The movies, like, you know, fucking The Goonies, Back to the Future, like BMX bikes, skateboarding, like it's all was so iconic and it was so awesome. And, you know, the cars were hella cool too. And everything about that decade is funny because kids today, like my kid, you know, they'll come home and be like, Dad, check this shirt out. And I was like, you're wearing a West Coast Chopper shirt. Like, that was cool back in early 2000s. Like, I have one of the first West Coast Choppers. In fact, he wears it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the OG
ones. Yeah.
And, you know, Paul Walker had it on in Fast and Furious. And then when we rode street bikes, you know, when we had the RCW crew, you know, because we rode sports bikes, you know, I had that Gixxer 750 and we rode with our crew. Shit, that's all we wore was like West Coast Chopper gear, you know, Doc Martens and jeans and stuff. And it's funny because you see all this style come back around and you laugh at your kids because they're like, this is so hot. Yeah. And I'm like, they think it's original. Yeah, I know. I was like, bro, this is not original. And then the music, you know, you get back into the music too. And like my daughter is an old soul. You know, she loves old classic rock and old hip hop, NWA, like that's her thing.
That's awesome, man.
And you know, I love that because you as you get older and you get into these businesses, you start raising your families and stuff, you know, these are a lot of the cool things that you can give back and it makes you smile.
Absolutely.
So, but then, you know, going back to the naysayers in your circle, you've got to be careful because your friends can be some of your worst enemies. And I don't think they initially or intentionally try to. They just, oh, bro, you can't do that. Oh, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. And so here's the biggest question that I get asked today. In fact, I was just asked yesterday, bro, how did you get into what you do? And this is what I tell them. If you never swing the bat, you will never hit the ball.
Absolutely.
So you can step in that batter's box 100 times and then step back out. But if you never take a swing, you'll never know. And so until you get to that where you're actually going to swing the bat and try and make a connection, there's nothing I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's a scary process. It really is. Like I had to come up with $100,000 cash and give it to a guy week 1 of COVID.
Yeah, that's scary shit.
I could have just gave away $100,000 and ate my everything on that, but luckily I swung the bat and I hit the ball, and that's, you know, that was a big milestone too. But you know, going back through everything we've been discussing, even going back to, you know, my dad's, just the way that I was raised was always having to swing the bat and try. Like he never really gave me that choice. You know, me and my sister are complete opposites. My sister, you know, dad was her world.
Yeah.
You know, she got her cars bought and paid for, and I didn't, you know, and she went to school and she did this and she did that. And I love my sister and we have a great relationship, you know, but we were just raised differently, you
Yeah.
know? And I really go back to, you know, just basically overall, like, I love the way that it happened for me because I wouldn't have traded for anything.
Yeah.
You know, when you tell the story, people are like, "Man, it was kind of an asshole move." It's like, you know what? But that made me who I am today, right? Like now, my kids, they're going to learn the hard way too. Is like, you know, just because I've acquired a portfolio and this and that, that doesn't just mean, like I told my youngest, I was like, don't get it twisted. I'm not just handing this to you.
Yeah.
Like you're going to
Yeah.
have to prove to me that, you know, you're worthy of this. You know, so my youngest Dominic, he's a hustler. He's just like me.
Yeah.
I love that kid. You know, he's out mowing yards, he's out washing cars, he's out picking up dog poop. Like dude, that kid made $280 on a lemonade stand.
That's awesome, man.
Bro, I was floored. I was like, what? Like, you know, he goes at the end of our street
Yeah.
and he's just making lemonade. And dude, over the 3-day week, he made like $270.
That's awesome, man.
And what was super cool, and I got to thank people at Yakima, you know, because Yakima's a good place. People were literally stopping and just giving him money because
he was doing it.
He was doing it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, no, I'm cool, but here's $5, man. I like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, let's face it, my kid, Dominic, rides a bike every day. He's outside every day. He plays video games, you know, a little bit, but
yeah.
He is, you know, he's just like us, you know, like he wants to be outside. He wants to go play with his friends. I really love that because we've gotten so far away from that. And I can tell you,
man, we have
running a kids program. I have kids come in all the time that, you know, the parents are like, oh, he's ADHD. He's this, that. No, he's just 7.
Yeah.
He's just 7. Okay. That's what 7-year-olds act like around other 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't need medication. What he needs is some structure and he needs an outlet. That's what he needs.
Yeah.
And combative sport, MMA, is great for that. Because when the kids get on the mat, I'm not their friend. I'm their coach.
Yeah.
And you better listen. You better pay attention. I'm going to kick your ass off the mat. I'm going to call you out in front of class. I'm going to give you those life lessons. You know, you might not get them at home or whatever, and that's fine. But I think it's a great background because what I love about Dominic is, you know, he is just like me. Like, he's a smart ass like me. He likes to hustle. He's always been like, the kid's a hell of a cook.
Yeah.
He cooks tips and eggs, steak tips and eggs, like on his own. And he made fettuccine from scratch, you know? When then I got my oldest, Jaden, which I love too, you know, but if it's beyond top ramen, bro, that ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, but it's funny because you look at all of the tried and tribulations you've gone through, you know, everything you've accomplished, and then you look at your kids and where they're going to go, and it makes you nervous because you're like, you don't know what your kids are going to end up like.
Right.
You don't know. The only thing you can really do is just to basically prove to your kids that things are possible. You know, if you work hard, you get rewarded for it.
Yep.
And that's been the biggest thing for me is hustle and grind. And, you know, I've had to have those talks with my kids like, you know, I might not make every one of your games, but just know that everything I'm doing is for your future too. Right?
Yeah.
Like I want you to be successful in life and at least have something.
Absolutely,
you know?
man.
My parents were never able to give me anything, which I didn't ask for. And I'm super glad, you know, and my mom every once in a while, you know, don't ever apologize to me. Like, are you kidding me? Like I wouldn't have traded my childhood for nothing. Like, no way. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I lived in a trailer court. Dude, it was like our own personal playground.
Yeah.
We slept in vacant lots. We had you know, everybody was like in this little compound. It was so much fun growing up.
Yeah, dude. I grew up in trailer courts too, man.
Loved it.
Yeah.
It was
It's
awesome.
like there was a gang of the kids on the fucking bikes jumping the speed bumps.
Yeah, bro. Exactly. Crashing like a vacant lot. We'd go camp out in it.
Yeah.
It was dude, I had so much fun. I remember when I moved, I was sad. We moved out to West Valley, a big house, you know, acre, had land. And
yeah,
I just remember it was such a culture shock, but it was cool at the same time because it was a new chapter in my life. But yeah, dude, growing up like that was just bar none like the best.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You all got in trouble together. Like it wasn't just one person, like everybody get their ass beat and grounded at the same time. And it was fun because, you know, you grow up kind of taking all that with you in your adult life. You know, obviously Gen X is a tough ass. We're a tough fucking we're a tough generation.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
when people watch these little TikToks or whatever about Gen Xers raising themselves, yeah, we did.
We did.
Like
100%.
we would leave in the morning, we wouldn't come home until nighttime. You know, our parents had no idea where the hell we were at,
Yeah.
what the hell we were doing. I don't know how I survived half the shit I did on our BMX bikes, jumping bricks
Right.
and just the stupidest shit we've done. You know, I just look back and I love where I'm at today. And all of that culminated to, you know, basically becoming the person I am today in running businesses and being involved. And the funny thing is I've never even looked at running a business as making money off of it. It's always just been something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, if the money comes around, it's great. Like, you know, with Yakima MMA, for example, it sustains itself. That's all I wanted it to do,
Yeah.
you know, but it's also not a full-time job for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's there to grow the sport and have these athletes have a nice gym to go to train to further their career. You know, like I said, one of the biggest culminations coming up is, you know, 4 of them are going to turn pro this year. That's awesome.
That's got to be amazing to be a part of those kids' journey.
Super cool. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
because, you know, they started as an amateur, they fought, you know, they worked their asses off in the gym, and then you start having the pro conversation with them. And they're like, some of them are like, oh, yeah, man, I guess I never really, yeah, it happens that fast. You know?
Yeah.
And it's cool because I know that the platform that we put together, but me, not just me, you know, there's a lot of us involved. You know, I have 7 coaches, you know, there's a lot of people involved with Yakima MMA that really make it possible. And that's what I love about it, because that business in particular, you know, gives things back to the community and people on that level.
Right.
Whereas like your business, you know, gives back to you know, the town in its own way. Like it employs people,
Right.
you know, it gives people um, electrical service that they needed. You know, you bring, every business brings something to the table. And that's what I tell people. That's one of the most important things you got to realize is when you're talking about local businesses, I want people to think about all the BS that we have to go through just to have that business here.
Absolutely.
You know, please
Yeah.
shop at your local business, support them as much as you can. It's always, you know, people talk about it, they talk about it. And you know, things get lost in translation all the time. You know,
Right.
like, and then going back to the very beginning of this, we have a lot of everything.
We do.
We have
We
a
do.
lot of everything. There's a lot of
Yeah.
options out there, you know.
So with your business, before we wrap it up, so
Sure.
what if you could get a message out about Yakima MMA? Like, are you guys looking for new members? Are you looking to grow? Like, what kind of services do you offer? Like, just, you know, somebody who's like thinking about, hey man, maybe I want to join their gym, maybe I want to try a class. Like, what does that look like for somebody who might be intimidated by coming down to like a fight gym, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like for the normal dude that's like
Right.
maybe thinking about trying to dabble, but maybe feels intimidated about coming down? Like, talk to that guy just for a second.
All right. Okay. Great. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of the biggest cliches that we get is people come to our gym, they fall in love with it, and like, this is nothing what I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
They were very intimidated to come down there. They were like, you know, myself included.
Right.
Like I told you, I was like, I ain't going to walk out of there with a black eye and busted up lip and this and that. Like, no way. No. Yakima MMA is formulated off of a simple principle. You know, you can train like a fighter without being one. That's our whole philosophy. And, you know, my philosophy, my personal, is bad things happen to good people every day. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to help yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about MMA is that's what it gives you. Like I said, weightlifting, you can get strong and big, but as soon as you stop, you lose that.
Yeah.
With MMA, you don't ever lose that. It's like a wrestler. You know, if you wrestled back in school, even as an adult, you know, you still know how to wrestle.
Right.
Now, you might not be able to shoot as fast as you did or, you know, have all the skills, but you still have it. So the reason our gym exists, and it's because it's very popular, is all of our classes are open to the public, and it's just training classes. Okay. There's levels to it. So you walk into our gym, you sign a waiver, you hop on the mat, you give the class a shot. There's no commitment. You could walk out of there, be like, it's not for me. Or you could be like, yeah, I want to try it again. Then we sign you up. There's no contracts. I don't do this. I'm going to lock you into some bullshit contract for 3 months, 6 months, a year. It's month to month. Because if you don't want to be there, we don't want you there. We only want people that just want to be there to train.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the vibe in our gym is super cool. And you can ask anybody that trains there. It is super friendly. I have all walks of life there. I have women, men, fat, skinny, old. I have it all. All different professions. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
They all go there, they train, they get a bomb ass workout. All of our classes start at 6 p.m., all adult classes. They run for about an hour. You are usually dripping wet. And like I said, it's like swimming. You don't really realize how much work you're putting in.
Yeah.
But the beauty is you're not really making full contact with anybody. If you do mitt work, or you're doing, glove work, where you're just blocking, it's not like you're getting beat up. Now, that said, there is a class for that. It's called fight practice.
Yeah.
And, Yakima MMA, has Outcast Fight Team. And, that's the name of our fight team. And how that works is you're invited to it. So if you're training at the gym and you're kind of giving inklings, and, one of the coaches or myself might go to like, hey man, I see potential. Do you want to try fight practice? Or you want to go to, do you want to ever try and compete? Some people are like, nah, I'm good. And then some people are like, hell yeah. So we invite them to a fight practice. They show up, we run them through a fight practice. We see how many times they throw up in a garbage can. Maybe they don't, maybe they make it through just fine. Maybe, and then we have a discussion, and then they're like, yeah, dude, I think I want to try this. Okay, great. Then you move on to that next level of training, which is where that's the fight practice. And that's where things are a little more full contact. Obviously, you're wearing shin guards and, all the stuff, but there's still bumps and bruises that happen in that class. And, the funny thing is a majority of the time the people come to us first. Like, hey, what do I got to do to, get into that class? And it's like, well, you got to train for more than a week.
Yeah.
Starters.
You got to keep showing up.
Yeah, you got to keep showing up. You got to show us, the kind of, because there is a dedication to the coaching staff and everything else that comes along with that. So, I would say to that guy who's intimidated is don't be, because it's not what you think it is.
Okay.
And everybody who comes in there says the same thing. They're like, wow, I really like the vibe here. But you also got to remember, we have a weightlifting facility, we have saunas, and we have cold plunge therapy.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of everything. Of course, we do focus on, so Monday night is boxing. And when I say these disciplines, this is just what we focus on that night.
Gotcha.
Okay. So it's still all related to MMA. It's just that's the discipline we're focusing on that night.
Okay.
So Monday night is boxing, all handwork. We're just footwork, handwork, that's it. Tuesday is usually no-gi jiu-jitsu. So we're doing a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff, submissions that you would see in mixed martial arts. That's Tuesday night. Wednesday night is wrestling focus. So primarily all wrestling, takedown defense, wall work, all that stuff.
Okay.
And then Thursday is Muay Thai, all Muay Thai kickboxing. So a lot of kicks, a lot of punches, very, very high energy. Each class is ran by a different coach.
Okay.
So I have Austin, who runs our boxing, myself, Wyatt, Lopez. There's a gamut of coaches that run Tuesday night, depending on what submission work we're going over, depending on who's going to run the class, what series are we going through will depend on what coach is doing Tuesday. Wednesday is taught by Lupe. He's our wrestling coach. He's a pro fighter. He coaches high school wrestling. He's a great coach. Thursday is Jesus. He's our Muay Thai coach. He's a pro fighter. Has a lot of experience in Muay Thai. Very, very nice guy. So every night is super popular. And then I have different packages. $85 a month for 2 days a week training. You can pick any 2 days you want, but the only reason I really put that together is there's a lot of people that just want to do some stand-up.
Yeah.
So, I get a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, a lot of gi guys are like, hey, I just want to kind of focus on the stand-up. So they do Monday and Thursday. So they come to boxing and Muay Thai.
So you show up at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Do you kind of get paired up? Like if there's a group of guys that are like very beginner, you roll with those guys.
Yeah.
So is that kind of how you structure it?
Yeah. Depending on what, so for example, I'll start with the stand-up classes, like the boxing and the Muay Thai. You're talking about basic skill sets that we're using. Like we'll be going over combos. If you got a really green person in there that doesn't know, their stance or anything, we'll break that down. Like, okay, this is going to be your fight stance.
Right.
This is how you're going to stand. You're going to hold your hands. Your left is your 1 is your jab. Your 2 is your right. We'll go through we'll give them the basic knowledge that they need. Majority of people pick it up pretty fast. It's not,
Yeah.
You're not necessarily in there fighting. Like you're not in there training like you're going to get in the cage tomorrow.
Right.
You're just basically getting a really good workout. And people who stick with it for like a month, they really start getting good. Like I was doing an all women's class, and I was blown away how fast these ladies were picking this up. I mean, they were doing 9s, 10s, which, those are your kicks, right and left leg. And I was shocked at how fast they were able to pick this up. So it was really cool because I had to actually pick the curriculum up for them because they were grabbing onto it so fast.
That's awesome, man.
So it was good. But yes, you walk in there brand new, not knowing shit, which a majority of people do.
Right.
One of the biggest things I get is I get mid 30-year-olds that come in. They're like, I really just want to kind of know how to handle myself because, things are getting weird out here. I want to know that I can, and I'm like, yeah, no problem. So yeah, we break it down. We get you paired up. And those striking classes are a lot of fun. Probably some of our biggest classes. Our average class size is around 30.
Nice, man.
So, there's a lot of people to choose from. I got a lot of women, there's a lot of women taking on the classes now. Even in my kids class, I would say it's about 50-50 girls and boys.
Okay.
Which is great because, I really just want people to train because I want people to be, one thing that this sport will bring is self-confidence. And one thing's for kids, obviously, there's a lot of kids that have some social anxiety out there because the way society is today.
Right.
They're raised on a phone or a tablet, they don't have that social structure. They might just be a little awkward or whatever. That's what this sport really does is you're confident. Okay. When you learn how to kind of control yourself and handle maybe a fighting situation or a stressful mental situation, it helps you in all facets of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember, like I told you, going into MMA, I just wanted to be able to protect myself and my family. That was my main thing. So like when I go places like, the fair or big places with a lot of people, I'm not walking around stressed out. Like, if something happens, it's like, all right, cool. I'm preparing myself for this stuff, but I don't go around looking for trouble. Obviously, it's one of the worst things you want to do, but that is just one thing that sport brings for you is just overall self-confidence. And I love instilling that into the kids because I think they need it the most, man.
Yeah, obviously. For sure, man. For sure.
And we get a lot of parents that ask us like, well, my kid's never done. And it's like, hey, they're going to adapt to this really well. And most kids really do. This is why our kids class is so big. I think all the kids have fun. In fact, I just had a meeting with the coaches last week that we are now going to have to start splitting the kids class to the brand new incomers, to the people that have been there a little while longer, so we can start progressing them.
Yeah.
And then getting the new ones kind of up to par. So I actually took on another coach last night, kind of getting his feet wet to help me with that. Kind of how I got introduced to it from Rich.
Right on, man.
So that's a good piece. And then we do the same thing in the adult world too. Like if we obviously have a group of people that are just brand new, we'll take them like, hey, you guys come with me. Coach has these guys over here, and we're going to start working these fundamentals so you can start enjoying everything that they're enjoying. We really try super hard, and feedback is a big thing. I get a lot of, as I'm sitting at the desk as people are leaving class, they're like, hey man, that was a great class. Thanks, coach. Blah, blah, blah. I can't wait for Thursday or yada. And that makes us feel good because it's like, cool. And then I'm really, like, hey, what do you want to see different? What do you feel like you're not getting or,
so you're open to feedback.
Yeah.
You're taking those things, you're taking feedback. You're trying to make the experience better for the clients.
Yeah. I want to know, because I feel like as a parent who's paid for sports all my life, I want to know, like, do you feel like you're getting your money's worth? Do you feel like your child's progressing? Do you feel like, they're getting something out of this class? A lot of them are yes. There's probably a few, maybe no, I don't know. But I only charge $65 a month for a kids class.
God,
it's super cheap.
I feel like that's a ton of value, man.
Well, it is because all of our classes are, obviously I know a lot of gym owners in the Northwest and across the country, and they're like, I can't believe you're really cheap. And it's like, but that's not what we're in it for.
Yeah.
We're in it for affordability and people to train. I don't have to charge $150 a month. 65 is fine.
Yeah.
I want your kid in there. I want them in there training 2 days a week. I want them getting this. This is a life lesson they will take forever with them. 100%. They will remember this.
Yeah.
I've been at the fair and I've had teenagers and young adults come up and be like, coach. And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's Brad, bro. I was like, Brad. I was like, oh my God, dude. Yeah. I haven't seen you since you were like 11 years old.
Yeah.
And it was like super cool because you're like, oh shit, I remember this kid when he started, man. He was
That's awesome, man.
6, in fact. And that's really cool because, yeah, I want to get back into it, man. I really miss it, things like that. And I was like, well, come see us. And then, people come to the new facility and they're blown away because, Yakima MMA has always been kind of underground, like
Yeah.
I think our biggest exposure was when Rich moved on Yakima Ave. But as soon as we left that location, everybody just thought the business went away
Right.
because it was never on a main street. It was always in a back warehouse or something like that. And now that I've brought it back to, which by the way, we own that building. So I bought that building January of 2024.
Okay.
I learned another valuable lesson is you're going to struggle to build a successful brand on somebody else's lease.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn real hard that no matter what they tell you, they will pull the rug out from underneath you at any given time. So that's what happened to us. I had a great facility, built it from the ground up, spent 10 years of my life, blood, sweat, and tears, and was booted. Just because, they wanted to make more money with another company from Amazon or some bullshit. And I'm like, whatever,
So that's what forced your move. And you're
yeah.
on Summit View, right?
We're on 803 Summit View. Yeah.
Okay.
So I bought the old printing press building, almost where Summit View meets Yakima Ave.
Yep. Right there on the little bend there.
Great location. Can't miss it. It's a black and gray building.
Yeah.
Big Yakima MMA sign. But yeah, that's what forced the move. And when I met with the owner of the building was to lease it. But then as our conversation progressed, he had mentioned selling it. So I said, well,
absolutely.
If you want to sell it, I'd rather buy it. And so we worked out, I basically hammered the same deal I did with the apartment complex.
Yeah.
And because I knew all the lingo, he's like, oh, you've done this before. I was like, yeah. So, I gave him his down, walked into the contract, blah, 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 started renovating the building, got it up to par, and then ended up paying him off. And now my LLC owns the building that Yakima MMA is in. And that way Yakima MMA will always have a home. That was my biggest thing is I don't ever want to have a phone call or a letter saying, by the way, we're not renewing your lease.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to relocate a business.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you got to find the right square footage. Does everything fit? Does everything work?
Yeah.
So it's now on our own terms, which is great because owning everything from A to Z is a blessing and it makes things a lot easier, So going into the structure of our business, we want to keep everything affordable because without your clientele, without your business, you don't really have anything.
Well, and the other thing about what I feel like is so special about what you've said about keeping it affordable is you're bringing it, so it's affordable for community members, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you're providing a safe space for these kids to come and not only train and learn MMA, but they're learning life lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so my daughter's done wrestling the last couple of years and she's 8 now. But dude, the stuff that she's learning, not just the wrestling aspect of it, but the wins, the losses, hey, if you grind and you put your work in and you learn these moves, you can go beat this person. Mm-hmm. Those things translate into life, right?
Oh yeah.
The work ethic, the grinding, the work, and then the reward.
And that's the biggest thing right there is not so much the sport or the technique. It's the winning and the losing.
Yeah.
And how hard this is.
Yeah. And
I've got kids that fold, they just start crying because so-and-so hit them in the arm. And then after a couple of weeks, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah. They build some resiliency, right?
And that's the biggest lessons from combative sports is not so much just the technique. That's the cool part.
Yeah.
It's really just mentally testing yourself of what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And that translates into the adult world too, is kids, especially because kids are really honest, and I know that there's a lot of parents out there that when they bring their kid in, they're nervous because, and, I get a lot of parents like, he's this, he's that, she's this, she's that. You give them a week or two in class and they're not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like they've completely broken out of their shell. Things are starting to click with them, and that's the growth, right? Any sport that's what it should primarily be bringing. And I think society in general has categorized sports as there's no winners and losers.
That's so wrong.
That is not true because
that's so wrong.
It is so wrong because here's the thing. You go into the real life, in the real world, there's winners and losers all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like everything we've been talking about is a win or lose situation.
Absolutely.
You could go upside down. Like, okay, my first house in Texas, I took a bath. Okay. I stepped into that batter's box. I swung the bat, learned a lot of valuable lessons about the Texas market, and I lost some money.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from that transaction because now the next time I do it, I won't step in any of these pitfalls.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So that is a life lesson. That's a win or lose.
It is,
Right?
man.
Now, I don't want people to get this misconstrued that we just go in and browbeat people. It's just, we're trying to prep you for what's really coming, you know, and honestly, you know, parenting today is a lot different than parenting as it was when we were growing up. You know, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, we didn't have, and plus things weren't as fast. You know, our parents would go to work and they'd make an honest wage and things were affordable. Blah. Today's world is so fast, so complex.
It's instant.
That, you know, people working today is just completely different than people working back then. So parenting is obviously going to change too.
Yeah.
You're so damn busy and you're in, you know, you're just enamored with everything coming at you that sometimes, you know, it's easy to give your kid a tablet and just be like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Right. And I see that a lot because, you know, there's kids that come to the gym that are, I'll never forget. This was years ago. I had this kid walk in. I think he was like 8 or 9 years old. Comes in with mom, introduces themselves, you know, whatever. I always shake the kids' hands, you know, I make them shake hands and, you know, tell me their name and, you know, what they think this is about, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I got this kid come in, introduces himself. He does a class, signs up. Next week comes back, walks into the gym, and he's like screaming at his mom because his phone's dead. And she didn't charge it. And, bro, I shit you not, man. I am sitting there cleaning the mat, listening to this fucking 9-year-old talk to an adult woman like he is above her. And I put my mop away and I walk over there and I walk over to him. I said, you need to sit your ass down and you need to apologize to her. I'm not going to apologize to her. I was like, you're going to apologize to her. You're going to get the fuck out of my gym. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I said, I don't tolerate that in my gym. And I looked at her and I said, you shouldn't tolerate that either. And she's just, you know, she's completely, like, you could just tell she's exhausted from this little bastard. Right? And I'm just like, look, don't ever come in my gym and talk to your mother like that. Yeah. I was like, if that was my mom, I'd be on the floor.
Absolutely.
Probably half knocked out with a concussion. Like, don't ever do that.
But nobody's probably schooled him up on that.
And that's the problem is, you know, as I felt bad for her at the same time, because I know that she probably has her hands full with this little kid. Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I want to tell her, like, you need to get a hold of this now. Absolutely. Because once this kid is 11, 12, 13 years old, that train is gone.
That train is gone.
You ain't getting that back. And I'm sorry, like, you don't need to be his friend. You need to be his parent.
100%.
And sometimes those lessons learned are really tough. And I get it. You know, there's a lot of parents like, well, it's like, okay. And a lot of it is our fault, Josh. I mean, let's face it. These kids are our kids.
Yeah.
So what was the difference between our upbringing and theirs? And you want to know what it is?
There's no phone.
Our upbringing was so damn rough.
Yeah.
We want to give our kids everything that we didn't have.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword because now you're like, dude, Christmas. What do you want for Christmas? I don't know. Maybe like a pair of shorts. There's no want because they have a PS5 and an Xbox and a computer and this and that and a blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like it's funny because you're like, my kid wants socks for Christmas. Like, this is weird. Like, that's all my kids have ever asked for is just like primarily clothes. And it's a good and horrible feeling because you're provided, you know, good things for the kids. Not that I spoil my kids, but by our standards, they're spoiled.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but every kid has a phone. Every kid has a whatever, you know, it's partly our fault, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Because, and this is why I've tried, I've done, you know, I make my kids work.
Yeah.
You know, so they have to come and they have to clean the gym every Saturday or Sunday. And I fired them already. I've fired them twice.
No shit.
Not joking, man. Fuck no. So I used to pay a guy to come in and clean a gym. It was him and his mom would come in and clean the gym every week. And it was like $80 or something like that. And it started with her.
Yeah.
She got sick. And so she brought her son in to help her. And then it kind of faded into him. And, you know, he would come in and do a deep clean every Sunday at the gym. And I think I would pay him like 70, it was like $75 or something like that. Anyways, my kids, they're obviously wanting to make money, they're getting their teenage years and things like that. So I was like,
Right.
all right, look, this is what I'll do. Originally, it was going to be for my oldest son because, the deal I made with my oldest son is like, if you are going to play competitive soccer and you're going to keep good grades in school, I'll pay for your car and all your stuff. You obviously, so Jaden can't get a job because he practices every day and then there's games on the weekend. Where is he going to work for an hour and a half a day? It doesn't really exist. So I said, as long as you keep good grades and you focus on soccer, you don't have to worry about it. Okay.
Right on.
That was the deal I made with my oldest son. Now, my oldest son, he wants to have his own money. He wants to, his girlfriend works and, she's going to college and, he's kind of seeing all this. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Okay. So I was originally just to say, hey, all right, you clean the gym. I'll pay you, blah, 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 whatever. But then I was like, well, I have 3. So I was like, I tell you what, you all 3 go clean the gym and I'll just give you $25 cash, $75 what I normally pay, whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great, Dad. I said, but if you guys do a shitty job, I'm going to fire you and I'm going to hire my dude back.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. So the first day we go, I'm there. I walk them through everything. I help them clean everything. I show them how I want it. And I'm very OCD, man. Like, I want it done this way, this way, this way, and so they all split up and they have their jobs and I let them figure that out, like you guys figure out what part you guys are going to contribute to and then whatever.
Yeah.
So the first time, I clean with them, it's obviously awesome because, I helped do most of it. So it was great. And then literally the next weekend, they go in and clean. They come home. I don't know, pretty fast. It was like an hour and a half. I was like, all right. I go down to the gym and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like I start taking pictures.
Yeah.
The garbage, this waste bag hasn't been dumped. That toilet obviously hasn't been wiped down. Like, what is this? What is that? Blah, 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 blah. So, and we have a group text going and I said, hey, you guys are all fired. And then of course the pointing fingers just comes out. Like, my son's like, well, that was Dominic's job. And Dominic's like, oh, it was already, and they're just like accusing each other of like this lack of quality that I asked for.
Oh my God, dude. That's
and I'm
hilarious.
laughing. I was like, you guys, all of it sucks.
Yeah.
It wasn't just this one thing. It was like, this all sucks. Like,
right.
So I basically told him, I was like, I told you guys, like, I would fire you. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I'm not going to pay you to do a shitty job.
Right.
Okay. That nobody's going to pay you to do shitty work. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of life. So I hired him back and I told him, I'm giving you guys one more shot. So the next time they went in, I said, this should take you longer than an hour, guys.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys are leaving the house and then coming back within an hour and a half, I know this is bullshit. Okay. So they get hired back. They go back. They obviously do a way better job this time. They've had a couple little faults here and there. But for the most part, it's a standard that's expected.
Right.
And I just tell them, I was like, look, if you guys want to be taken serious, you need to showcase that you're serious.
100%.
That's how an employer is going to look at you.
Yep.
Biggest life lesson learned when I painted houses. I was in Seattle painting a house. I was working for a guy named Kerry Weedman painting with my cousin. I loved it. It was a fun job. We were over in Seattle painting. All he did was high clientele houses. And I remember we show up in Seattle and this house had this big, huge back deck that I had to grind and prep.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was in the back on the deck. That was my job. I had all my sanding pads and everything ready. I just clicked that grinder on lock and I just didn't stop.
Just went for it.
And I remember telling myself, like, I'm just going to go and and we went to lunch and I came back and boom, just clicked that grinder on and just kept going and going and going and going. The next day, Kerry gave me a raise. He's like, hey man, come here and look at this deck. And I thought, oh, fuck, I fucked something up. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I did not hear that grinder stop all day. And he goes, and I just want to say, man, like that is awesome.
That's what's up right there, dude.
I want to give you another $3. And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, bro. He goes, dude. So that right there, I'm talking about it right now. I mean, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That little lesson right there was the difference between making more money than the guy that I was hired with was just that one action, right?
Right.
So I tell my kids, like, this is what you're really being judged off of.
Yeah.
So like when I tell Jaden, go take the trash out, and I go out there and the lid's still open and the bag's hanging halfway over I'm like, this is half-ass work.
It's half-assed
This is
work.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Even when you take the trash out and you don't put a new bag in the can, that's half the job. That's
Yep.
not the whole job. That's half the job.
100%.
I said, this is bullshit. This is unacceptable. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, and the funny thing is, I'm sure your kids are the same way. You come home and you yell at them every day about the same shit, like it's some magic trick. Like, yeah, guess what? You guys use dishes again. They need to be done again.
It's
like,
the same
oh my God.
it's the same fucking conversation,
Yeah.
dude. Every other day.
You wore clothes today?
Yeah.
Oh, that means there's more dirty laundry. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
And then my
Put a
daughter,
load in the washer. That's so funny.
My God, my daughter, God bless her soul, but this girl is a walking hurricane. Like, I can tell any room my daughter's been in because every drawer cabinet is open.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Her backpack is, we have a main hallway, like a main intersection in her house. That's where her backpack will be.
Oh yeah. Comes in,
right
opens
in
the door, drops it,
just
goes
right
about
there.
her shit.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Top ramen on the counter, wrappers, and I'm like, and I come home and I'm just like, are you serious right now? Like, you don't see this? Like, and that's the OCD kicks in.
It's so how it goes, man.
But it's
so
cool
how it goes.
Because I take those lessons to the gym with me.
Yeah.
And because I know that almost every parent sitting there in the lobby watching is going through the same shit.
Yeah.
And so I try and bring that comedy to the mat to really resonate, A, with my students, and B, with my parents, because I want them to understand too that, this is what everybody goes through.
Yeah, for sure.
Your kid might be a little bit more of a jerk than some other kids, but I guarantee you it's the same process, just a different household. So I really try and resonate that through Yakima May in my kids program. It's not just for the kids, but it's also for the parents.
Yeah.
I want the parents to feel like their kids are getting a good structure from a coach that understands their life too. And I think that helps me just keep entertaining myself, because I'm a funny guy, man. Like, I'll tell you right now, there's some stuff I do in the gym that people are like, and I love it because it just catches people off guard, like all the time. And I love catching the kids off guard because I make a lot of references to things I know that they don't know.
Right.
Because they're not of our age group.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's that? And I was like, you don't know what Back to the Future is? Bro, get off my mat. Seriously. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I'm just kidding. So it's a lot of fun. I love that. It's it's the first business that I've ever really ran that I kind of get that kind of joy out of.
Yeah.
And it's not the same stress as, like, say, Maniac or, J80 Properties or any other LLCs. It's different because it brings me normalcy.
Nice, man.
That relate in MMA to the sport, to just normal people. So, if that guy ever asks me, like, I'm intimidated to come down, don't ever be intimidated to come into that gym, because I can tell you right now, it is nothing what you think it is.
That's awesome, man.
So
that's good to hear. I want to come down and check it out, do some classes, and just kind of see what it's all about, man. Kind of the last thing I ask the business guys that I have on here, man, is, if you had any advice to that young entrepreneur that's thinking about, like, as you've said multiple times, getting up to the plate and actually taking a swing at something, like, what's that valuable piece of advice that you could give, man? And you've already given a ton of advice, but like what's that one thing, man, that really resonates with you?
Don't listen to the naysayers, man. I don't care if it's your parents. I don't care if it's your friends. If you feel it's something that you want to do, you have to try. Because if you don't, you're just going to live in that what if thing state, and then you're going to see one of your other friends or somebody do something and get successful at it, and you're going to be like, just, you got to swing the bat, man.
100%.
Just swing the bat. You could crash. I mean, I've crashed multiple times. It's, but I've also surrounded myself with people that are good people, you know, and they're not liked by everybody, but that's, my friendships with my friends are on my base, not your, I have a lot of friends that don't like each other.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like, oh yeah, I don't really care for so and so. That's fine. You know, that's cool.
Yeah.
But you know, my friendship's based off of, you know, things that pertain to me. So I would suggest that they do the same. You know, is if you have a good friend and they're the ones that are constantly like, well, you know that they're always giving you the scare speech. Like, think about something that, what if it does get successful?
Absolutely,
That's
man.
what you should be looking
Yeah.
at. It's like, I've never looked at a business venture as like, oh my God, if this fails, it's like, I've always looked at it like, dude, if this thing takes off, this is going to be so much fun, right?
Right.
Because, you know, really, I was blessed because how bad could a car business get? Well, I found out real quick that the government wants a lot of money from you when you make
Absolutely.
money.
Yeah,
And I'm
they
like,
do.
holy shit. So maybe investing all of this money back into this business was not a good idea.
Yeah.
Next time for next year, I need to start putting this money away to pay, you know, X, Y, and Z. That's, you know, one of the things. And
Yeah.
my friends were always like, you know, we always had those friends too. They're like, oh, dude, this is never going to work. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, well,
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. Just keeping an optimistic mindset, right? And you know, I know when I was, you know, really flirting with starting my business, like I had so many people tell me it's a bad idea, you know, and one of the things that I kept coming back to was it's like I knew inside my heart that like if I didn't try, like I would always have this huge level of like regret from not trying, from not at least trying,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, man,
Well, let me ask you, like, let me ask you, 'cause you know, you have a similar story. Back when I first met you, you were painting cars.
absolutely, man.
You were in the auto body trade,
Yep.
and I remember snowmobiling together. And then the next thing I knew, you reemerged as this electrician.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
man. So I mean, I just you know,
where
like
did that transition happen?
so I mean, so I caught that entrepreneurial bug kind of when I was in high school, right? Um I did auto body YB Tech my junior year, and then my senior year I did DO, diversified occupations.
Mhm. Same
Um
here. Yeah.
got a job at a body shop. I was working for a guy named Kelly. We all called him the Rooster. He had a shop down there in Union Gap, and he kind of took me under his wing, man. And we got to a point to where he trusted me enough to where he would let me work um, all the way up until like 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'd be in there by myself, you know, prepping cars, putting primer on cars, you know, doing all the things. And we got to a point where like he would pour into me, and I'll remember this, man. Like like this was like a pivotal point in my life where we're sitting in the cab of this truck, and he's like, you know what, man? He was like, you have something. He's like, you have something that a lot of people don't have, and he was like, remember this. He was like, you will never be a wealthy person trading an hour for $1. And he told me that, and at first I was like kind of thinking about it, just the wheels were turning, and then he said it again, and he was like, just think about that. And he kind of left it at that. And so, you know, that was kind of the point where like I started like taking on side work painting cars. Like I started in that about that same time as when I met Curtis,
Right.
and he kind of had his own thing going, you know, his own little shop kind of going. And I started renting space from him, and we were helping each other do paint jobs. And you know, and as a 17, 18, 19, 20-year old guy, it's like I could do some of these jobs and make $700, $800 instead of working all week for 40 hours and making 500, $600. And so, and then it's like, you know, you replicate that a few times, and the next thing you know, it's like you got some real flow. And it's like I kind of started putting the pieces together. And then in that time, I kind of realized like, man, you know, I don't think I want to be painting cars for the rest of my life, but I know I do want to be doing my own thing at some point.
Mhm.
You know, I knew a couple of electricians that were doing their own business on a very small scale, but on their terms, operating out of their house, using one van. It's like, man, that seems doable, you know. And I really liked fucking with stereo stuff, and so my buddy Wes was going to Perry, and I was like, man, I'll go check it out with you. And so, and also in that time, my mom, I had taken a year off of high school, and my mom had pretty much laid it out for me. And she said, you know, it's cool that you're racing motocross every weekend and that you're working at the auto body shop. And, it seems like you're having a good time, but you're not really doing anything productive. If you want to stay here, you're going to start paying me rent, or if you want to go to school, you can keep living here for free. And so she kind of pushed me into doing something else. And so I went to Perry, learned that. The quick version is, got out, went to Vegas, got a bunch of experience, came back, and, I worked for a few shops here in town, and that was kind of in that time when we were snowmobiling together and hanging out. And,
Right.
I just kind of made a plan. It's like, man, I was probably like 27, and I had a goal from a very young age. It's like, by the time I'm 30, I kind of want to be doing my own thing. I didn't really know what that looked like. Obviously, going into the electrical trade, that was the obvious thing, but I was still painting cars um up until literally the week that I started Wattsmart. And so the first house I bought in Sela had a good sized shop on it. And I was painting cars out of it. I was doing side work, doing electrical side work. I was working for All Phase. And and we had my son in that time. And I remember Stephanie told me, she's like, man, she's like, you get home, you work in your shop, like you're not super present, like. And it's like, yeah, but like I want to get to this point. And so I just kind of told myself, like, all right, if I get this business started at this point, then I'll just focus hard on that. And then I will make some time in the evenings to actually be present.
Right.
And that was kind of one of the driving forces, man. And it was like, it was scary. It was scary, but I did it. I mean, I got creative. I figured out how to do it.
That's
And
that trench warfare.
it was, man. It is just,
Yeah.
it's grinding it out. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't glorious, man. It was me, running out of a van hard for a year by myself. I had to get real creative because, I didn't have a big log of work. And so, luckily I had good relationships with past employers. And I remember that first year, man, like Allphase hired me to run projects as Wattsmart. And so it's like, I went on for a couple months, charging them my shop rate, helping manage some of their projects. I did that for several different contractors for the first couple years. And it really kind of got me off the ground. I did that with a company out of Boise, M&M Electric. I did that for them on the Dick's Sporting Goods project. So they came in, they didn't have the licensing to do the project. They had already sold the project. I don't even remember how that guy found me, but met with him. Was like, hey man, at the time I had a small crew. I was able to go in there, run that whole project, quarterback the whole thing from them, got it done. And that was kind of my first big hit of money. I remember cashing one of those checks, and it was like $60,000. And I was like, fuck, this is what's up, man.
Yeah.
And I just kind of started parlaying that momentum into growing my business, right?
Mhm.
But for me, it started at
So you didn't break out and go buy a Chevelle or anything,
yeah, I just I didn't do that until about year 5,
yeah,
and then
right, there you
I
go.
kind of
That's
started,
that discipline.
and then I started kind of dabbling with stuff. But yeah, man, the first 5 years of that business was reinvesting every dime back into it, and buying new trucks, buying more equipment, buying more tools, just grinding it out to where I could try to get it to the next step.
Yeah.
And there's nothing glorious about that, man. There's nothing glorious about buying, another van for 15 grand to throw a guy in. I mean, it's not the stuff that you throw on Instagram and flex with, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of it is like, now it's like some of my vans in the fleet I have, I mean, they cost more than some badass cars, but
Mhm.
those things are making me money. Those things are allowing me to
Yeah.
to to do projects, to generate money, to give people jobs. And that's one of the things that gets me excited now is being able to help my employees, being able to help them in their lives get to the next level.
Mhm.
You know, being able to contribute in the community where I can, you know, being able to donate here, donate there, help out, coach the baseball teams, you know, like pour into some of those kids. Like that's a big part of the reason for me starting this podcast, man, is I want to get some of this info out to these younger guys who were us when we were in our early 20s, right? You know, those guys that are trying to figure out how to get on a come up. Hey man, like you did it. I did it. It's
Yep.
possible, but it's like you just gotta grind it out,
It's
man.
funny, a lot of our friends they've all done it
Yeah.
at some point. Like a lot of my friends in my friend circle, we all have like a similar background story too. So, it's funny that, when you asked me to come on to this is pretty cool because it is something that our generation kind of really did well at.
Yeah,
Was it
man.
seems like a lot of the people that I grew up with are, you know, none of us were rich, but they all seem to do, generational wealth is you always want to strive to do better than your parents,
Right.
so obviously creating a good family backbone or whatever, something for your kids to catapult off of. That's what was really important to me.
Oh man, me
And
too.
it's cool, even talking to you, in your transition to the electrical world, stuff like that. Cause I remember when you teamed up with Curtis,
Yeah.
I think you guys painted one of my Toyotas,
Yeah, we probably did. We painted a lot of
painted
shit
one of my X
together.
cabs or something back in
Yeah.
there. And it was super cool. It turned out really good. And, just going through like all the stages of everything. Because like, when you look back, when you reflect back, like even just talking about it, it's funny because you remember what Kelly told you,
Yeah.
right? Just like I remember a lot of the conversations that I had with my dad and other friends and people along the way too. That still resonates with me. Even with Carrie telling me about the grinder, like that is really what is cool is because you don't think that there's much in that at the time
Right.
until you look back at the reflection pond of your life and you're like, wow, I just got Mr. Miyagi here, man. I didn't even
Yeah.
know it, so it's
Yeah.
super cool. And I think the podcasts are obviously things to share those stories with people that we don't normally get to talk to anyways,
Absolutely.
which is super cool. Which is the whole reason of us starting our podcast is because of our sport.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. We want to start talking about the amateur world and MMA and things that pertain to the sport and things that pertain to Yakima, you know. So it's super cool. Um, People like yourself we all share these similar stories that we know, but nobody else does.
Right.
And like you said, I'm sure you get asked just as much as I get asked. Like people ask all the time, like, the neighbor kid came up to me one day and he's like, how do you afford all these cars? And it's like, well, I deal drugs. No, I'm just kidding. I don't deal drugs. It's like, you know, I work, and
Yeah.
I've like I said, I've always had like two jobs. I've had like my job, and that is one thing that I've been super blessed about is I've stuck it out with Platt for almost 30 years. It's been a great company to work for. I like it. I enjoy my job. I love my customers. Um, but it's been my backbone,
Yeah.
So where I've been really lucky to take my like Yakima MMA and just keep it like more of a hobby type business, Now people are asking like, you ever going to do this full time? And it's like, God, I don't know if I want to,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
fun, but it's not that fun. It's like, I, you know, I think I'd lose the passion for it
Yeah.
because then it would be just like my job.
Be like another
It's
job.
like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah.
Even the car thing, you kind of get disgusted with that every once in a while. Like right now, I'm sitting on 3 projects that I just don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to finish my 71 K5 Blazer. I don't know if I want to finish my 69 Camaro. I don't know if I want to finish my car hauler. They all need to, but it's like I just don't have the time,
Yeah.
or the energy.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
after you buy a car too that's already done and you just hop in it and enjoy
You
it, you're
drive.
kind of like,
Yeah. Like,
I
man,
kind of like that,
it's like, that's
like I
pretty
can
cool.
just drive it, park it.
Yeah.
It's cool. I don't have to, but then I go back to like, I kind of miss being in the shop,
Yeah.
having that fun. And things like that. One of the things that I really loved about the car world the most was the hunt.
Yeah.
I
Like finding
love
the deals.
finding the cars
Yeah.
and then getting them. And then it was kind of like, all right, cool. I'm over that. So now we're, the next deal.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was stringing my dad along because I would show up at his house with like a 71 split bumper and he'd be like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, I got a guy buying it tomorrow. He's like, what? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, I bought it to sell. And he's like, you're fucking nuts. And, it's just, that's what I bought it for.
Yeah. You bought it
just
to, it's a means to an
completely
end.
a means to an end.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Absolutely.
now that you get to your means, now you have that kind of that freedom. Sometimes you're like, you know what, I can go buy one of these cars if I wanted to and just enjoy it. But at the same time, you kind of feel guilty because it's like, I didn't really build this car.
Right. Absolutely.
Kind of like, people, you like go to a car show, like, oh, it's a beautiful car.
Yeah.
Who painted it? I have no idea. I don't know who painted it.
Yeah.
Like my Impala, it has those murals on the wheel wells that were all hand drawn and airbrushed. Everywhere I go, like, dude, who
painted that?
I was like, I have no idea. And they look at you like, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, bro, I don't know who painted these. Like, that was funny because when I got the Impala, it had that crack in the trunk lid. So I had the deck lid repainted. And I told the painter, I was like, hey, I want you to paint these black for me. And so I get the car back like a week later and they're on the car, but they're still muraled out. And he's like, I'm not painting those. I was like, well, why not? And he goes, bro, because whoever did that by hand. He goes, that's probably like $3,000.
Yeah.
He goes, you can go buy another set and I'll paint those, but I'm not painting over this. Okay, fine.
That's funny.
Okay, cool. So but hearing that from a painter, that's his profession. He's like, bro, you see my trunk lid over there? I said, yeah. He goes, that was like $4,000 to get that done.
Yeah, that stuff's expensive.
And I was just like, all right, well, maybe, okay, cool. You're the professional here. I'll keep them, whatever. Right so on. It's cool. But yeah.
Well, let's tell people, where they can find you at, man.
So you can find me like personally or like,
just like the gym, man. You're not a big social media guy, but like you guys have a website. Like if somebody listens to this, like how can they look you guys up?
I actually just got a website, like literally like 2 months ago.
Nice.
Can you believe that? I know it's only been awesome, since 2003. So, you can find me or you can find the gym. You can find us. I will say us at yakimamma.com. Full up and running website, has all the class information, basically every question you would ever have for me. And then the gym is physically located at 803 Summit View, which is right downtown. If you're familiar with Yakima, where the Lariat Drive-In is, we're right down from them. You can't miss us. Good location and great classes. And it's been a blessing. So it's been fun.
That's awesome, man. And congratulations on all your success with not only Yakima MMA, but your real estate portfolio. I mean, it's, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because, we're just normal dudes, man, who just grinded it out, right? Grinded it out. We got to pretty good places in our life. Like one of the biggest things that drives me is, you mentioned generational wealth. Well, kind of the path that we've put ourselves on is like, we can change that. Like the stuff that we have done with, our businesses and our properties is like, we can get that to our kids. They can work off of that and they can build off of that. Right.
Yeah.
And if we pour into our kids and we give them those life lessons and we give them that work ethic, like they can really take what we've done and they can parlay that into a bigger picture of generational wealth.
That's what I would love to see happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, man. Like my kids take what I'm able to do and then make that better for their kids. And
man,
that's the goal. Yeah.
Sure. And that's how you change. And that's how you change. That's how you change your bloodline, right? Your immediate family. And I mean, really like what we've done, we can really change the direction of how their lives and their kids' lives go.
Yeah.
And it's something to be proud of, man. It is. It's something.
Well, remember back in the day, I'm the first kid to go to college in my family.
Yeah.
Right? So now that's not, a lot of kids do that, but now it's like, I'm going to be the first one in my family bloodline to be able to give my kids
a building,
something. Yeah. Something to, So that was kind of like my whole like achievement. Like I said, there's a lot of things I did in my life to just kind of like put those stakes in the ground to where, at least my kids seen that it's possible.
Right.
Now, what they choose to do with it, you know, all we can do is show them the path, and then they got to
100%.
kind of take it as their own. But if you don't even show them the path, then it's kind of easy for them to give up on themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's super cool, man, and I appreciate you having me on. And it was, you know, this is a great thing. So
Yeah,
we
man.
need to keep
Awesome.
doing this for sure.
Awesome.
So
All right, guys. If you found value here, give us a like, give us a share. Check out Yakima MMA. I know I'm going to go check out a class. Let's support local businesses, guys. Let's get in there. Let's support them. This is Josh with Wired Wattsmart.